This episode is brought to you by Cellular Performance Institute. Is your body beat up and broken down? Look into stem cells today. It could change your life. Go to cellularperformanceinstitute.com. For all you jiu-jitsu heads out there, catch me and Gio Martinez August 29th in Copenhagen, Denmark. Go to Instagram at Copenhagen Jiu-Jitsu Camp for all the information. September 19th at 10th Planet Pleasant Grove in Utah. That's right outside of Salt Lake City with Nathan Orchard as the head instructor. October 24th, I'll be in 10th Planet Omaha. Go to 10thplanet.omaha.com for all the information. Thank you.
I can't believe I won.
And you still got people out there with double masks and face shields and shit. Look into it.
You can tell it's real because it looks so fake.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Look Into It. Tonight, it's all the lost and forgotten history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with BJJ historian extraordinaire, Robert Drysdale. What's up, Robert?
What's up, Eddie? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this, man. The history, the true history of Jiu-Jitsu is beyond fascinating. I mean, because the story we got in the 90s when Jiu-Jitsu first blew up in the United States, it wasn't like we didn't get the truth. We just didn't get the whole truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The basic story was Japanese guy Maeda went from Japan to Brazil, taught Carlos, and then Carlos taught his little brother, Helio, and then Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was formed, and they went undefeated, and Jiu-Jitsu's the best martial art ever. That's the story we got. We didn't really get any of the mad details that exist. It's fascinating. Fuck, I'm so into it now. And you wrote a book about the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And what's that book called?
There's 4 of them now, right? The first one is Open and Close Guard. The second one is The Rise and Evolution of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then we have What is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Today and the Triumph of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 50 Years of a Martial Arts Revolution. And yeah, they're all like, different segments of the story, but part of the motivation was to, challenge some of what is mythology and what is incomplete about this story. I think it's a fascinating story as it is. I don't think that history, like I've never liked when people start trying to embellish history too much. I'm like, the story is incredible as it is. There's no need to add anything to it. Let's just tell it how it is, free of politics, free of pseudo-nationalism, free of pettiness and like political allegiances. And let's just tell the facts as they are. They're available, they're published. And that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, there's a lot of things that were revealed to me over time too. So it's been quite the journey of discovery for myself.
Okay, before we get into that, let's get into how you got into jiu-jitsu. I want to hear your Brazilian jiu-jitsu story because your dad's Brazilian and your mom's white, right? She's American or something like that?
No, opposite. My dad was a Mormon missionary. He did his mission in Brazil. My mom's Brazilian.
Oh, okay.
My mom was a swimmer. They met at BYU in Utah, and then that's where I was born.
Oh, so your dad never even went to Brazil initially before?
No, he was a Mormon missionary. He's American.
No, but he didn't meet your mom in Brazil. He met your mom in Utah.
Correct.
Okay, so are you currently Mormon still?
No, I've gone to the church since I was 14.
Okay. That's a fascinating story right there. But now, okay, so how did you get into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu initially?
I was a child in Brazil. I moved back to Brazil. My parents moved back when I was 5, and I was raised in Brazil. So my schooling years, my academic years were all in Brazil. And I was the American child. You in Brazil, my Portuguese wasn't great. I could understand it, but I couldn't quite speak it when I first moved there. And Brazilians, they play soccer. I didn't know how to play soccer, so they put me in the goal. And I was sort of like the oddball, I guess. And I guess I got picked on a lot. And I think that led me, I don't know if my interest in combat precedes that or not. Always like He-Man and G.I. Joe, so maybe. But I think that my childhood in Brazil definitely had an impact on, what I wanted to become. And I found jiu-jitsu when I was 16. I remember I picked up that tape with Dan Severn and Hoist Gracie on the cover. It was a VHS tape.
Yes. Now, what year was that? You were 16. What year was that?
I kept hearing about jiu-jitsu 95, 96, 97. But the reputation that jiu-jitsu had in Brazil was of hooliganism. You might as well be a criminal. Like, that's how they look. If you're a jiu-jitsu guy, you were a criminal. They didn't look at it the way we look at it now. It's something to take your kids to. It was something for young males to brawl when they go to a nightclub. But I was interesting. That was an interesting image to me because it was an identity that I was looking. I wanted to be respected. I wanted to be, I guess, know how to fight and walk in a room and be the guy everyone was scared of, not the guy that was scared of everyone. And when you're 16 today, that doesn't sound very mature, but when you're 16, these things are important. And I found jiu-jitsu. I saw the Hoist Gracie on the cover, and I rented that Hoist Gracie versus Dan Severn. And when I saw him,
that was UFC 4. UFC 4.
Correct. I was 16 years old. I would have been 15 maybe, and 1998. And I never looked back. When I saw that, I was like, I have no idea what he's doing, but that's what I'm going to do. And it was funny because I hadn't even stepped on the mats, Eddie, and I already knew that that's what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. I don't know if you ever had that impression when you maybe the love of your life, you meet this woman, you go like, this is the woman I'm going to marry. That happened to me too. If you ever had when I saw jiu-jitsu, I was just so in love with the concept of being able to take someone down and beat them that way so elegantly. Like, he wasn't even hitting people, man. It was just so elegant.
So take me through that first day. You were in Rio?
São Paulo. I grew up in the countryside of São Paulo. Yeah.
Okay, so now you're in São Paulo. You see UFC 4. What's the next move? What school did you find?
So I found the one old jiu-jitsu school in Brazil, but believe it or not, there are very, very few of them. That's the one I went to. It was basically
like a Japanese one.
Yeah. What are the odds, right? Like, I didn't know the difference. So I walk into the wrong school, and I trained there for 6 months. I feel bad saying this, but fortunately for me, they went out of business because I probably would have stayed with them for the rest of my life. They went out of business. So I looked for a new jiu-jitsu school, which was what we now call Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And when I started training with those guys, it was my last year of high school. It was right before I moved to the U.S. And I moved to the U.S. in 99. And that's when my competition journey really began. And I never looked back.
What school was it in Brazil that you were there for like a year or so? What school was that?
It was called Quatro Tempos. The coach was Otávio de Almeida Jr. His father was Otávio de Almeida, was a very influential character in the development of jiu-jitsu in that state. He was a student of the Ono brothers, who were rivals to the Gracie family, and of George Gracie, which is an interesting character. So my original lineage, interestingly, traces itself back to George Gracie, who was the first hero of the Gracie family. Most people have never heard of him, but he was the first hero of the Gracie family way before Kilio. And George had a very big impact in developing jiu-jitsu in São Paulo. So my first school comes from that tradition.
Wow. So now we had a similar story, because when I saw UFC 2, missed UFC 1, but I saw UFC 2, I saw Hoist fucking everybody up, and I was doing karate at the time. And I'm like, fuck Hoist. He beat Minoki Ichihara. To Minoki Ichihara. Hoist Gracie.
Oh, definitely. And he's down. Yes, he's down on the ground. ground.
Yes. Watch Hoist will take his left leg and go over the top. There it is. He'll get him in a hook position. Now he'll rest. He'll get a good mounted base. Pretty quickly now. He doesn't want to sit. Well, he could do an arm lock real easily right now, but I think he's going to let him turn and go for the choke. Here it is. He tapped.
Was that an arm lock?
I didn't even know that guy, but he represented karate. I'm like, and Hoist, I think he armbarred him or like, yeah, he armbarred him. And I hated Hoist. Oh my God, until the finals. Then when he got to the finals, I'm like, okay, I like this motherfucker. And I was always a pussy growing up. I was never a fighter. My family, my friends, they always knew me as a pussy. I cried my way out of all these situations. I was never, ever looked at as a fighter ever growing up or anything. And I wrestled in high school. I sucked. I got like one takedown in 2 years. I sucked, but I always had confidence that I knew I was a shitty wrestler, but I knew that I could take down people that weren't wrestlers. I knew that. I go, you don't wrestle, I can fuck you up. So when I would be involved in a fight, I was just trying to survive until the principal came. So if someone got in my face, like there was this one soccer player that was talking shit. He tried to kick me in the balls, and I just double legged him, took him down and held him in side control, and like rabbit punched his stomach until they broke it up. And I was like, cool. See, I survived. I always thought that was pussy fighting. And I did that again. And when I was a senior in high school, some guy was talking shit. There was a girl involved. And I knew he didn't wrestle. So I was going to double leg him and just fucking hold him down and just, rabbit. Like I would fucking ground and pound before it was even a thing. But I thought I was cheating. I thought real fighting was on the feet. But I didn't care. I didn't have a reputation to protect. Nobody thought I was a badass. I was just like, dude, I'll just wrestle this dude and he won't be able to do nothing. Yeah. I would just, you know what I mean? So I looked at it as like self-defense, not like, ground and pound. And then when I saw UFC 2 and Hoist doing that, I'm like, wait, you could take dudes down and you're not considered a pussy? Oh my God. So then I was like, damn, I need to do that. That's my shit. That's what I was like. I thought taking dudes down was, basically admitting that you suck at fighting. And
but you see how powerful Hollywood is. You're winning fights and it still convinces you that you're not doing something that's right, that you're doing something wrong. You're winning.
Yeah, I'm just holding the guy.
That's how powerful Hollywood is. It's
I was like, fuck. I was like, dude, I was Mark Coleman before when he was like 11. But anyways, the part of my story that's similar to yours, I'm like, shit, I got to do this jujitsu thing. And I remembered on Laurel Canyon and Magnolia, there was a jujitsu school. And I go, oh, fuck, I know where there's a school. So I went there and I went in. I go, I'm going to join this shit. I sat down. The instructor came out, Chadwick Minge. I'll never forget him. This was 1994. He gave me the paperwork and the class was about to start. It was like perfect timing. And they all came out in black gis. And I thought that was where I'm like, Hoist had a white gi. Okay.
Something wrong.
I didn't say shit, but that was the first red flag. I was like, these guys got black keys. I go, I wonder if it's the same shit. And then I watched the class and they never did any ground fighting. The most they did was like shoulder rolls and shit. And I asked the instructor, I said, yo, how come you guys aren't fighting on the ground? And he said, oh, you're talking about that Gracie jiu-jitsu stuff. I'm like, what? Isn't this all jiu-jitsu? He goes, no, man, Gracie jiu-jitsu, they just fight on the ground. I go, he says, their cousins, the Machados, are in the valley. You want me to give you their number? And I said, no, I didn't want to offend them. I'm like, no, this is cool. Let me watch this shit. In my head, I was like, Machado, I got this shit. So then I looked up Machados. Back before this was before the internet. I was going through the yellow pages and shit, looking for Machado. And and then eventually I found the Machado Academy with Jean-Jacques, and then I started there. But I didn't stay there 6 months. You stayed there 6 months. I stayed there 20 minutes. But that was the only
what we experience, what we both experience is what I call pre-1975 jiu-jitsu and post-1975 jiu-jitsu. There's a difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The ground orientation which we are known for, what the Machados taught you, what Otavio taught me, was a byproduct of the 1975 rule set. Prior to that, jiu-jitsu they were practicing in Brazil was much closer to what you were describing. Self-defense, weapons, a little bit of ground, a little bit of takedown. That's what we call pre-war judo. That was the norm prior to 1975. And this is where people go crazy when I say it, Eddie. but I'll back it up with evidence. I'll pull book after book after book, evidence after evidence. I mean, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
But it contradicts so much of what we've been hearing our whole life. So it sounds like it's something like an alien would be saying. Like that doesn't add up with what I've heard. So a lot of people are saying something different from what Robert's saying. But Eddie, I'll back it up. But it's an important distinction because what the world understood to be jiu-jitsu prior to 1975 was essentially self-defense. It's what you saw. It's what these old jiu-jitsu schools were teaching. It's not what we do today. What we do today is something fairly new, fairly recent. It's 50 years old, really.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you came to the States, you joined the
Novo União.
Who?
Novo União.
Oh,
John
Novo
Lewis.
União. Okay. And now Andre Paternaris, was he here at that point? He's the founder, right?
He would visit. My coach was Steve da Silva, and then secondary were John Lewis and Gustavo Dantas. Those three were my at JSEC. You remember JSEC in Vegas?
Yes, of course. John Lewis.
Yeah, I remember. I was one of the members.
When people talk about like body lock passing as like something new, I'm like, dude, Higan Machado was the master of body lock passing, exactly the same way Nicky Rod does, the way he weaves around the legs and goes over the knee, exactly. And John Lewis too. I remember John. Like there was some seminar. I mean, I've been involved in literally hundreds of seminars, and I can't remember which one in Vegas, but John Lewis was there, and he was teaching body lock and the swiveling around the legs with the body lock. So people think that shit's new. It's nothing's new. I thought I invented this whole time. People would say, dude, you invented so much shit. I go, I didn't invent that much, man. Just a couple moves here and there. I just put a system together. But I would say I did invent the jailbreak. I always thought that. The jailbreak, the way using flexibility to regain guard from bottom side control. I always thought I made that up. And then Eric Paulson, like 6 months ago, sends me a video of like 1922, these Japanese guys in black and white, and the motherfuckers are doing jailbreak. I'm like, oh my God, I thought that was my move. Oh, I was so fucking pissed.
You want a interesting story? I interviewed Euclides Pereira. We'll talk about him a little bit if you want. He's one of the major figures in jiu-jitsu history. Most people never heard of him. But he's like 90-something years old. I interviewed him recently. And I have a picture here. I might be able to find it before the end of the show, of the podcast. And of him in a 50-50 exchanging blows with Ivan Gomez. You were asking me about Ivan Gomez earlier. Yeah. So here in 50-50, in a 50-50 guard exchanging blows. So they knew the heel hook. This is in the 1960s.
Yeah.
So when I interviewed Euclides Pereira, I asked him, so who taught you the heel hook? Because I'm curious, like, what is this genealogy that I need to learn about? And then he thought it was such a strange question. He goes like this. What do you mean? And I go, who taught you the heel hook? And he goes, my coach. And then I go, okay, but who taught your coach? And then he goes like this, his coach? And then that's when I realized what I was asking was such a dumb question, because we like to think that we're so modern. Look, we have iPhones, and those guys had nothing. So how could they know anything? What most people don't know, Eddie, is that I'll give an example of how out of touch with history we are. During the 1930s, during the Great Depression in the United States, in California, where you are, during the Great Depression, there were arenas in California selling over 10,000 tickets to watch submission wrestling matches. 10,000 tickets. Prize, money-wise, north of $48,000 in today's money. That was in the 1930s during the Great Depression. This idea that we just reinvented the wheel recently, it's like, man, this goes way back. They just didn't call it jiu-jitsu. They were calling it catch wrestling, professional wrestling. It was judo versus wrestlers, but it was essentially what we would see at ADCC. Granted, the rules were different, but it was wrestling with submissions. Those guys were doing much of what we now think is completely new. Those guys were doing way back in the day. It's just that much of it is not recorded because not everyone had a camera on them in those days, and no one reads old newspapers. So we're under the impression this is all new, but it's actually all really old.
Yeah, well, what is new is, in regards to catch wrestling, judo, and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, there's all these debates, like in regards like to judo, back in the early 2000s, when everybody was on the underground. Remember MMA.tv? Everybody's on the underground. There was these different debates. There was one debate where the American judo guys were saying, oh, this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu shit is just judo. This is our shit. Why did you guys repackage it and rename it? And that was the battle. But the Japanese judo guys weren't saying that. It was the American judo guys that were saying to the American BJJ guys, you guys are learning some shit that came from us. We're judo. This is all judo. Look at all these old videos. They're doing arm bars and triangles. And I was the one saying, okay. I was debating with the American judo guys. I was like, okay, yes. The Machados and the Gracies never said they invented Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. The story is Maeda came down and showed them, and then they innovated it, and then it turned into something different. It's not the same. So the American judo guys are saying it's the same. The Japanese judo guys ain't saying that. You know why? Because the Japanese judo guys are flying to Brazil to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because they know there's a difference. If you can't tell the difference between judo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you can't see the finer detail. The finer details are the Brazilians, they decided in their format, they're going to let people fight on the ground unlimited. They're not going to give them like 30 seconds and stand them up. So when you do that, over decades, guard passing becomes super complex. And then your guard game on the flip side becomes super complex. That's why the judo guys from Japan never said, oh, they're ripping us off. They flew to Brazil. They're flying Brazilians in, but the American judo guys are saying, oh, that's the Brazilians ripped off judo. The Brazilians ripped off judo. I'm like, you can't tell the difference between Brazilian jiu-jitsu and judo. Yes, of course, we all know it comes from the same shit, but the Brazilians decided to stay on the ground unlimited. And when that happens, over time, the guard passing and the guard, same thing with catch wrestling. So I was like on the underground arguing, defending BJJ to the American judo guys. And also the same thing, catch wrestling versus BJJ. The catch wrestlers are saying that. They're posting pictures of dudes from 1812 in carnivals doing kimuras and all this shit saying, look, we were doing this shit before. You guys ripped us off. I go, yes, you're right. You guys invented a lot of shit. But in the sport of catch wrestling, there's no guard play. So if there's no guard play, there's no guard passing. So if your style has no guard play and no guard passing, damn, that's a style with a big fucking hole, in my opinion. Go against Gordon Ryan, see what happens. You know what I mean? So the difference between what the Brazilians did, you cannot deny what the Brazilians did. Yes, they took shit from Japan. They took shit from Russia. Holes went all over the fucking place. They took shit. Yes, but when you're talking about pure grappling, unlimited on the ground, there's a reason why over the last 25 years, the Brazilians, Americans, but in the beginning, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, there's a reason why the Brazilians dominated. The Japanese were getting fucked up if they went down to Brazil for the World Championship. You know what I mean? Because it was unlimited on the ground. When it's unlimited on the ground, it forms into a different style. It's just like saying, oh, like a Wing Chun Kung Fu guy going, like to Hung Guard Kung Fu guys. We're doing kicks, we're doing punches too. Look, we did kicks and punches first, and then the Hung Guard guys going, but we're doing it different. We're doing it like this. And so if you can't tell the difference between judo and what Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is, man, you're not paying attention because it's totally different. Same thing with catch wrestling. Catch wrestling has no guard, passing. That's not good, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. In 2026, they're absolutely correct. What is important, Eddie, that we acknowledge is that our genealogy does go back to the Kodokan. Now, a lot of people in Brazil are going to try to skip the Kodokan. Like, Maeda was not teaching Kodokan judo. Maeda was a Kodokan black belt. Whatever he taught Brazilians, he taught what he knew, which was classical Kodokan judo.
Stem cells, they could do some wild shit down there.
I got the stem cells in my shoulder. My shoulder was jacked. I went down there, it worked, man.
Eric Anders' neck was f***ed up, and then he went down and got stem cell treatment. Now it doesn't bother him at all anymore.
I definitely recommend CPI. It's changed my life. The best stem cell clinic in the world.
I just come and I do stem cells to make sure that I'm resetting my body and staying healthy.
It regenerates tissue, reduces inflammation. The results are amazing.
CPI stem cells is where you want to go. There's no other place in town. They do the best work in the world. I feel incredible.
If there's anything causing you to not live the quality of life that you like, then this investment is more than worth it.
When it comes to the science of stem cells, no one comes close to CPI. There's not even a close second.
For a free doctor call to see if stem cells is the right option for you, visit us at cpistemcells.com.
Now, the reason why these things are so confusing, Eddie, it's because The term jujutsu, let's use jujutsu pre-Meiji, pre-Jigoro Kano, pre-Reformation, is an eclectic term. They use it in Japan the way we use martial arts in 2026. Any style. Jujutsu is any style. It's not a style. There's no jujutsu style. When the first wave of Japanese began to migrate to the West, Europe, Brazil, United States, they continued to use the term jujutsu to describe something that was already becoming what would later be Kodokan Judo. The most popular of all the jujutsu schools is Jigoro Kano's. It's still called jujutsu initially, or Kano Jujutsu. In time, he changes the name to judo because he doesn't want to be associated with the circus, precisely the catch wrestlers you're describing. He doesn't want to be associated with those guys. So he changes the word from jujutsu, which was associated with entertainment, to judo because he wanted some. So judo is the modern term. Second, third, fourth wave of Japanese that come to the Americas and come to Europe, they begin to teach the modern term, which is judo, even though it was the same thing. Okay, what the Gracie family learned in Brazil was classical Kodokan Judo, but it was the first wave Japanese immigrant, so he was calling it jujitsu, even though he was from the Kodokan. That's where the confusion comes from. Now, there's judo prior to the Olympics and judo after the Olympics. Before the war and after the war, judo has also been changing. But what we practice was basically what we call pre-war judo. You were describing something, oh, it's completely different today. You're absolutely right. It's completely different today. And it's because of the rule set. The rule set determines evolution. If I create a rule set where I give 20 points for a takedown and 1 point for a mount, what are people going to get good at? Well, they're going to get good at takedowns, obviously. If I give, 4 points for a mount and 2 for takedowns, what are you going to be good at? Well, you get good at passing the guard so you can mount. It goes without saying. It's just logical. The rule set determines the evolution. And that Brazilians had a very ground orientation interpretation of judo. And the reason for that is it's speculative, but I speculate that one reason has to do with infrastructure. Brazil, I think you've been to Brazil. They're very small buildings. You don't get big mats like you get in wrestling and judo here or the big academies today. In Brazil, you get rooms where you can have maybe 6 people rolling at a time. Very small room. So as a result, you can't stand up. So that's one reason. But the other reason is most of these guys, because they didn't have a federation until 1967, they had no federation. They didn't run tournaments until 1973. Was that prior to that, their fighting experience was Vale Tudo. Vale Tudo was basically the old MMA without gloves, longer round. You know what I'm talking about. Some of your listeners may not. But so these guys came from Vale Tudo. And Vale Tudo, the rounds were 30 minutes long, Eddie. It's all interesting. Sometimes, not always. It would change. Right? They did not interrupt the fight when they went to the ground. They didn't have gloves, meaning strikers have a smaller advantage because if they break their hand on your forehead, well, guess what? They can't keep fighting, or at least not well. So Vale Tudo was a more ground-oriented business. When these guys began to organize BJJ into a federation, well, they see combat as a ground-oriented business. So that's why they're giving 4 points for mount, 2 for takedown, because mount is where I can strike you. Knee on belly is where I can punch you. Passing the guard is better than being in guard because I can't really punch you well inside your guard. But if I'm in side control or knee on belly or mount, I can punch you a lot easier. So really the rule set that we now call the evolution of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu traces its rationale straight back to the Vale Tudo in the 1950s and 1960s, which is where that second generation of members of the Gracie family, primarily Carlson Gracie here I have in mind, had all his fighting experience. These guys didn't have tournaments. They didn't compete. They competed very rarely in judo or anything else. So it's important. So basically, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is highly influenced by Vale Tudo. You would think that is the other way around, right? But Vale Tudo precedes BJJ by decades.
Yeah. Now let's everything you're saying, I totally agree with it. The format determines how that sport evolves. And when if you're doing judo and you only could be on the ground for 30 seconds, they're not going to spend time on, it'd be a waste of time. Like if I was a judo coach, I'm like, what are you doing spending all your time passing the guard? You got 30 seconds on the ground. Just if it hits the ground, hold them and then stand up. And we got to work on it is all about the format. And that's why when you're talking about pure grappling all the way through, you cannot deny the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu strategy and format is the best in regards to pure grappling on the ground. Look at Marcelo Garcia. Look at yourself. You Darce Marcelo Garcia. Look at all the best grapplers. Gordon Ryan. That's jiu-jitsu. He can't wrestle. I mean, he has a little bit of wrestling, I guess. He could wrestle a little bit, but as soon as when he fought Andre Galvao, he kind of just fell on his butt and he didn't care. He's like, I'm going to get this guy's back and sweep him or whatever anyways. That's the beauty of the format. The passing the guard, 3 points, mount 4 points, get the back 4 points. When you're getting rewarded for the best positions in Vale Tudo, aka MMA, that's the truth. Being on the back. You're watching a UFC fight, you see fucking Khabib on, whoever's back. Who the fuck is winning? Everybody knows Khabib's winning. He's on his fucking back. Everybody knows that. Yet, that's the problem with the format of wrestling and catch wrestling is you're supposed to give your back when you hit the ground. That's the big, they need to tweak that a long time ago. You know what I mean?
You're right. Like they acknowledged that the guard was an essential component of grappling on it's like ground fighting. The guard was extremely important. The idea that a pin ends the fight is very myopic when you think about it. Because we see guys winning from the bottom all the time, whether it's jiu-jitsu or MMA.
Yeah.
So it's a myopic idea.
Richie Martinez, Richie Boogie Martinez, last year, No Gi Worlds, IBJJF, black belt. He got gold, and all 4 fights he won off his back.
Got your 2, Boogie, 2-0. Second me an overhook. Perfect, Richie. Go right to it, Richie. Start using that elbow control. You're not passing your guard, Richie, no matter what. You can use your butter half too. Hey! Let's go! Hey! Tight, Richie, that's tight. Oh, you got it, baby. Mike, you gotta take your time. Put on sleep, Richie. You got loco. It's okay, rechamber it. You're already hurting. Oh, you tapped. Play again, Richie. Here we go, Nick. Right off the bat. He stands longer. Go. Good. Yep. Throw it up now. Throw it up. Walk. Push, frame. Good. Hands in the armpits. Look to stand. Hands in the armpits. Look to stand. Hands in the armpits. Look to stand. I like the 2-on-1. I like that. Arm bars in the setup. I like that 2-on-1. Let's pull it out. Hands in the armpits. Look to stand. Hands in the armpits. Throw it up. Right hip. It's there. Richie. Let's go. Finish that, Richie. Let's go. Finish that, Boogie. Let's go. Kobe. Let's go, Kobe. Let's go.
None of his opponents had him. He just ripped him.
And that was a major blind spot. And respectfully to other grappling arts, I don't want to disparage anyone, but I think it's a major blind spot because a submission is a better way of ending a fight than a pin, in my opinion, or a perfect throw for that matter.
Yeah.
Like something you said a minute ago just reminded me of something. It's very interesting. Since I've been, researching on this and reading and writing about it, I have basically 2 kinds of people who attack me. It's very interesting. And they would hate to be around each other in the same room, but I'm sort of like in the middle of both, so I get attacked by both sides. One are the hardcore Brazilian old school zealots who go Robert's attacking BJJ because, the Gracie family didn't really learn judo. They learned pre-Meiji jujutsu. They were teaching they were rescuing what the samurais were teaching. Like it's trying to create a connection between Brazil and the samurais, which is inexistent, by the way. That is ludicrous. There's no evidence for any of that. And then on the other end, you get the judokas that go to your point, like, oh, this is nothing but Newaza judo. Brazilians added nothing to the story. This is all judo. It's all judo. And I find myself arguing with both these extremes. And it's difficult because it becomes like two political parties, right? Almost like cheerleaders, like my team's got to win. And when you look at the facts, what you see is a very rich history, Eddie. It's incredible. And I urge Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, the community in general, to dive into this history head first. It will enrich your jiu-jitsu experience. If you think your jiu-jitsu experience is rich with the techniques alone, imagine when you understand their origin and how they developed and where they come from and why, and the cultural features. Like, why is Brazilian jiu-jitsu so surf-oriented? It's not like judo. It's this very surf culture. There's a reason why it blew up. Look, I've seen this around the world, Eddie. Brazilians managed to export the best they had to offer with the Japanese form of combat as a vehicle. Japanese, sure, they did create judo. BJJ is a variation of judo, no doubt. But they radically changed the culture, Eddie, and that's important. The culture is very, very important because the culture is what nourishes the competitive practice. The competitive practice leads to evolution, but what nourishes everything is the kind of culture you're in. So Brazilians were like, oh, you're 5 minutes late. That's okay. You wear flip-flops. You have acai after practice, hang loose. That's not from judo. That's not from the original Gracie Academy, Eddie. It's very important we acknowledge it's not the original Gracie Academy. Private lessons, rich people, self-defense. Rich people, self-defense, private lessons. That's what they did. What the world now calls Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, was born inside Carlson Gracie's gym out of the rivalry between Carlson Gracie and Hollis Gracie. Those were the guys that said, let's keep this stuff on the ground. Let's make competition the center of practice. Let's open it up for everyone. Let's do collective group classes instead of private individual lessons. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, rich, or poor. Everyone's welcome on the mats. And they changed jiu-jitsu forever.
And that was Carlson.
Carlson is the center of the story, Eddie. I don't care what people say. They can kick and scream all they want. I'll battle for this because it's not pro or anti-Gracie. I'm not interested in adjectives. I'm interested in facts.
Yeah.
Carlson is the guy most responsible for giving shape to what we now call Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And the reason the community doesn't know that, it's not because of the facts. It's because most people don't know the facts. It's because Carlson never marketed himself. He was terrible at marketing. He didn't speak English. He's the kind of guy that would have 500 followers on Instagram today. He just didn't care. He was busy creating the world that we now benefit from, the world that we live in and that we love and that we're so proud of. Was essentially created out of his rivalry with his younger brother, Hollis. Prior to that, those guys were doing self-defense. And they get angry when you say it, but like the evidence is overwhelming here, Eddie.
Okay.
It's just
okay, so I want to get into the history of like the very beginning with Carlos and Helio. But before that, I think we should start with Carlson. Because the beginning of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like early 1900s, like what, 1912 or something like that with Carlos and then Helio. There's that history of how it went to my head. But when did Carlson, who is a brother, Carlson was a brother of Carlos and Helio, right? He was one of their brothers?
No, he was Carlos's oldest son.
Oh, shit. Okay, damn. There's so much going on. There's so many Gracies. Okay, so Carlson is Carlos Gracie's oldest son, and he was pretty much trying to convince the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community at that time, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, to go more no-gi and more Vale-Tudo oriented, right? He started...
Correct.
And what, explain that. Take me through what year it was when Carlos Gracie Jr.'s oldest son, Carlos Gracie is the first one that learned from Maeda. Explain the divide when he decided to take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu into a different area. Let's get into that. Carlson was Carlos's oldest son, and Carlos's brother Helio had Horion, Hickson, Hoist, and Hoyler. But that's like they're like rival parts of the family, right? And Carlson's brother was Holes, right?
Correct.
Okay, so take me through the whole Carlson story.
So when I say that what they were practicing was a self-defense model, that's what they taught their students. They did have a group of instructors and cousins and brothers that would get together, sometimes normally at the end of the day, and they would roll around a little bit. Basically what we do now, but at a very, very small scale. Now, me and you know, Eddie, that if you have 3, 4, 5, 6 people in a room rolling once a day, with no competition, the evolutionary pressures are very, very weak. Now, if you have thousands of gyms with hundreds of individuals in each and every one of them, with a competition going on once a month, over decades, you have evolution. Evolution is a byproduct of competition, not of genius. I don't believe that a smart guy thought of a move. For you to come up with the jailbreak, even though you're not the first one, you still invented it, just not for the first time. You had to have someone trying to beat you. It is the friction that yields evolution, not some guy sitting in his bedroom by himself reading martial arts books. Like, that's just not how things happen. Carlson was the guy that insisted in a model that was competition oriented. Prior to that, competition and live rolling in group classes was not the center of their practice. The center of their practice was private lessons aimed at rich people. Okay. Carlson was the guy that says, we're going to bring these guys from the beach, these surfers, we're going to bring them in. I don't care how rich you are. In fact, you don't even have to pay. If you train hard, you'll train for free.
What year is this? Around what year is this?
He opens his first gym, I want to say 1968.
For all your 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu merchandise, please visit 10thplanetjj.com/shop. We also got a Look Into It t-shirt that just dropped. Thank you very much for your support.
But don't quote me on that date. I'm not great with dates, okay? Believe it or not. But it would have been similar. But like he really begins to distance himself from his uncle throughout the 1960s because his uncle wanted to continue. He was a very territorial person. Healy was an extremely territorial person. He didn't want anyone doing anything that wasn't his way or that would infringe on his way of his interpretation of what jiu-jitsu was. And Carlson had a very different interpretation. He was not attracted to self-defense. He was not drawn to self-defense classes and groups and private lessons. He wanted basically what we do today: community, surf culture, open to everyone. Everyone can train. Democratize jiu-jitsu is essentially what he did. And by insisting in a competitive model, he basically, not that he invented a bunch of moves, that's not the point. What he did was open the doors and create an arena where BJJ could evolve in. That was his insistence. Prior to him, competition is not the center of jiu-jitsu. It's a marginal thing. In fact, they didn't even have competitions until 1973. Okay, so that's why Carlson is so important. It's not only because he created the space for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's evolution to take place and surpass judo, because up to him, they were not ahead of judokas on the ground. BJJ took its lead on judokas after Carlson Gracie, the federation and the tournaments of the 80s, and especially after IBJJF in the mid-90s. That's when BJJ began to distance itself. Now, Carlson had no rivals. That's when his younger brother, Hollis, begins to train with him. They were partners for a minute. Before him, it was Carle Gracie, who was far more important than he's given credit for, if you ask me. And then Hollis Gracie, when Carle moves to the United States, Hollis essentially replaces him. He is the rival that Carlson needed so their students can do this in competition. And when their students are doing this in competition, that's when, this triangle move is really good. Hey, it turns out the spider guard thing works well. This De La Riva guard is a good move. Because prior to that, these guys were not developing these moves. How could they? In a room with 6 people with no competition experience. They're just rolling around like the way those jiu-jitsu guys you're describing did in the Black East, with no real clue of how a ground fight takes place. So that's what Carlson did. And he changes the culture. And this is very important, Eddie. The culture is extremely important because part of BJJ's success, it's not its appeal on the ground. Remember, the ground game exists in Sambo, it exists in Kosen Judo, it exists in catch wrestling. What distinguishes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu more than the techniques, I would argue, is its culture. And I saw this when I was in Japan. I tell this story in my first book. When I was visiting the Kodokan in Japan, it's like going to church. It's very Japanese. It's not Brazilian at all. Not Brazilian. It's the opposite of what you see in Brazil. But when you go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym in Japan, guys are showing up 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late. They sit with their legs open. They're taping their fingers calmly while other people are already in class rolling. They're chit-chatting and during class. They're not really, it's like, and I'm sitting there watching these Japanese interact the way they're interacting. I'm like, this is Brazil, man. This is Copacabana. I'm in Copacabana. And Carlson's the guy that brings that to BJJ, that surf culture, those relaxed manners, precisely what makes BJJ such a great community. That didn't exist before Carlson. You understand? So what he did was to modify BJJ culturally, methodologically, and technically. It's a whole new system, Eddie. It's a whole new art. Now, I don't like to use the word creation, invention, because these words, these absolutist words, they carry with it the burden to prove, or the belief at least, that there was nothing that preceded that.
Yeah.
So when I say I created the move, you're assuming that there's nothing that led you to that creation. And I had to be careful with that sort of language. So I don't say that Carlson did not continue something he learned at the original Gracie Academy. He certainly did. He continued what his uncle and his father were doing, but he modified it radically. I would argue modified it more than what Carlos and Helio had done to pre-war judo in the 1930s and 40s. Carlson's the shift, it was like when evolution takes place, Eddie. It doesn't go suddenly, right? It's a small change, like a wolf does not become a Chihuahua overnight, but a Chihuahua descends from the wolf. But it took many, many generations for that to happen. So when we're talking about evolution, you're looking at evolutionary markers. Like, where do we identify the big, rapid changes that leads to whole new channels of growth? And the one that is jumping at me is the 1975 rule set and Carlson Gracie, and they're happening at the same time. Carlson becomes the dominant force in jiu-jitsu in the 70s in Brazil.
And Carlson had, when Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, when a member of the Gracie family fights someone internationally, all the Gracies come together as one and they back that Gracie fighter. But within the Gracie family, like you're talking about, Carlson Gracie was battling with the whole side and the Helio side, right? Because apparently he didn't have a great relationship with like Hoyler or whatever. Because the only time I ever met Carlson Gracie, I met him once. The only time, it was right after ADCC 2003 when I went against Hoyler, is the only time. And I swear to God, I was working for the UFC at the time, and I was like in production and shit. And I'm walking on the floor. It's packed. The floor is packed. It's in Chicago, a UFC in Chicago. And I'm walking through I'm going through people, and all of a sudden, people part, and there's Carlson Gracie looking right at me. He's like a foot away from me, and he gives me a big hug. I never met him before. He just grabbed me and gave me a big hug and said, "Thank you for that, Hoyler." And I'm like, "What? Thank you for that, Hoyler?" I was like, "What? That's crazy." I got
you know what it was. It's like any family. To be fair, I'm sure, I don't know if you have siblings. You probably have days where you want to kill your siblings, and the next day you guys are. It's like any family. It's ups and downs. But he had mad respect for Hoyler, but he loved competition. Carlson was the kind of guy that he would not, if you asked him to train them to fight Hoyler, he probably would. And he didn't look at it like, he didn't look at his loyalty to his family above his loyalty to his students. And that upset many family members, because like he's training guys to defeat his cousins. And that would drive his family members crazy. It was like, dude, that's what we do today. You train your students. You don't train your cousins.
Yeah.
The loyalty is a student master sort of relationship, not we both have brown hair. I'm going to support you because we have some adjective in common. Surname, it doesn't matter. Like, well, you're my student. I have a duty towards coaching you.
Yeah, Jean-Jacques got a lot of heat from the elders for, obviously for coaching me against, in the rematch at Metamoris. He got a lot of heat for that. A lot of heat.
So that's Carlson Gracie. It's like, he's like, Eddie, if you're a Jean-Jacques student, like, why wouldn't he? And Carlson is openly saying this. He says, what kind of coach would I be if I said that my student has to lose because he's going against one of my cousins?
Yeah.
That would, so, and then he basically insists, because it wasn't about putting anyone on a pedestal regardless of surname. It was about the evolution of the art, and the evolution of the art needed that friction. And Carlson was that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And before we get into the origins of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I want to make it clear to everybody in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community that without Rorion Gracie, no matter how people feel about him within the family, he has a lot of beef with people in the family because of the lawsuits and all that stuff for the UFC. Regardless of that, if Rorion Gracie didn't create the UFC. Yeah, he had investors and partners, but it was Rorion Gracie's idea to basically expose Vale Tudo to the world through the U.S. If he didn't do that, we wouldn't be having a conversation right now. I'd probably still be a strip club DJ. You know what I mean? So no matter how people feel about Rorion for this and that or whatever, he created the UFC, and the UFC is what created all this shit. Everything we're talking about, that was because we wouldn't even know. Vale Tudo would be just some obscure, weird sport that you'd see on That's Incredible, or something. You wouldn't even know.
When I wrote my first book, I don't know if I sent a copy to Raleigh Gracie or if he bought it. I can't remember. But he wrote me. He read it. And he wrote me. He said, I liked your book. I thought you were very truthful and everything. And he said, but you weren't fair with my father. He said that. And I had just read Richard Bresler's autobiography, and he was one of Rorion's oldest students. I think he was his first student. And I said, you're right. Like, I was not fair to your father. Your father did a lot for jiu-jitsu. So I rectified that in my second book. If you read my second book, I talk about Rorion very differently because, yeah, you may not like the guy, but at the end of the day, he's the guy that brought it to the world's attention. Like, there are some forces in jiu-jitsu that if they were not in place, like some guys like, oh, if that guy never existed, maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. But Rorion's not one of those guys. Like, without Rorion, like, none of this would have happened.
None of it. And people can say the same thing. You could kind of say the same thing about Royce, because Royce, no doubt, is a fucking world history legend. What Royce did, but if Rorion decided to put in Renzo or Rickson, it would have been basically, the same thing. The Gracies would have came out looking like gods, so, Renzo could have did the same thing Royce did. And Rickson, even Royce said Rickson is 10 times better than him. So, but without Rorion, none of this shit would be happening without Rorion. And what people don't understand is he blew up jiu-jitsu so hard. It was like a hydrogen bomb, just fucking blowing up the whole world. Everybody wanted to do jiu-jitsu after UFC 2. Everybody. And then all the Brazilians and all his cousins and his brothers, they all said, fuck it, let's cash in. So they all started opening up Gracie jiu-jitsu gyms. And then Rorion was like, no, I blew this up. The Gracie name, that's my dad's name, So he started suing different members of the Gracie family for opening up schools using the Gracie name. So then, even the Machados, they went through that. So the Machados just said, fuck, because they were going under Carlos Gracie Jr. Jiu-Jitsu in Encino. That was their first school. It was Carlos Gracie Jr. in Encino. The Machados were running it. Then all these lawsuits were happening. So then the Machados decided, you know what? We're just going to call them Machado Jiu-Jitsu and fuck it. And then like everyone else said, okay, I'll just put my first name on it. Then it was Renzo Gracie Academy, Half Gracie Academy. And then that kind of, left a bad taste within the family's mouth for Rorion. That was a mistake. Rorion, maybe he should have, maybe it's a blessing in disguise, all the lawsuits, because then now it's Renzo Gracie Academy. That's better than Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy for Renzo, right? And so maybe it was a blessing in disguise. Do I have any of that story wrong? Is there stuff I don't know about the lawsuit?
No, that's in a nutshell. Yeah, Carlay Gracie was here well before Rorion Gracie. He had always been teaching. But the issue was, never mind. The issue was Rorion, obviously wanted a monopoly of the name, and then he sued his cousin Carlay, and they went at it. There was already some beef that precedes that. If you read Hala's book, you know the beef. But Rorion and Carlay had never gotten along. There's even this Hala writes about this. It's in her biography of her father, of Carlay like physically fighting with Helio. There's some bad blood there that preceded the United States episode, right? But Rorion wanted a wrap of the name, and it just didn't work out. That's why they started using the term Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You would have remembered in the mid-'90s, it was Gracie Jiu-Jitsu until the lawsuit, and everyone started using Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's what the origin, because Brazilians never called it Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. No Brazilian has ever called it till this. Now some of them do. But when I was coming up, it's like, well, you don't go to China and ask for Chinese food, it's just food. Yeah. So it's in Brazil it was always jiu-jitsu, but Brazilian jiu-jitsu is something that they coined here in the United States.
Yeah. So the history of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, starting from the early 1900s, it's insane. I'm finding out all this these fighters that I never knew existed that had such an impact on the development and the evolution of the whole sport. Like we'll talk about Ivan Gomez. That guy's amazing. But just the history of like UFC 1 to when the Fertittas bought the UFC, just that history. If you're into the UFC and you don't know the history and how the evolution of the UFC, it's just that. And that's like a microscopic part of the whole thing. But damn, like you really see the evolution of martial arts in the first 10 UFCs. Like, because in the beginning, the first couple UFCs, Hoist went out there, tackled everybody, and submitted everybody. So there was a point in time in the United States from grown-ass men's minds that striking didn't work. We're like, oh shit, striking is a hoax. The striking don't work. I was 24, 25, 26, 27 thinking, oh shit, striking don't work. You just get taken down and you get choked out. So there was a time where like boxing was a joke to grown ass men because of what Hoist was doing. Hoist was just fucking everybody up really easy. And the guys that gave him trouble, like Chemo, they were way bigger. So we could do a little mental gymnastics and go, oh, he was way bigger. Dan Severn, okay, he was way bigger. What would happen between Hickson and Dan Severn? That's what I want to know, because Hickson wasn't known for his attacks off his back, and Hoist was, so he triangled Dan Severn like after 17 minutes. That would have been interesting, Dan Severn and Hickson at that time. But anyways, the evolution, and then UFC 7, Marco Ruas comes out. No one knows who he is. They call him King of the Streets. But he comes, that whole history of luta libre and jiu-jitsu. It's like, fuck, that's a movie in itself. So all of a sudden, Marco Ruas shows up. He fights 6'7" Paul Varelans. 6'7" Paul Varelans. Dude was claiming trap fighting. He was a trap fighter. Like, what the fuck is that? So Marco Ruas comes out and he just fucking leg kicks Paul Varelans to death.
Ruas shows some punching and a kick to the body.
Oh, nice combinations. Kicks and punches, one after the other. And you have to remember, Ruas has some boxing talent.
Again, a kick from Ruas. And a left hand, a jab from Marco Ruas. Varelans is bloodied already in the nostril area, but he usually bleeds from there. Not unusual to see that early on.
Well, it says that Ruas is a Thai boxer, Muay Thai, and he's demonstrating it now. He's kicking the front leg, the thigh, which is a Thai technique.
And you notice now Varelans changed his stance. He's now got that leg back. You got to wonder if that had an effect.
Oh, I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. That thigh is very vulnerable.
Look at how red that thigh is.
Time-wise, it could have been a bad strategic move.
Varelans playing a little bit of attitude on Ruas. Another solid leg kick.
You can see the bruises on his leg. He's hurt. That thigh, he's not going to be able to walk tomorrow on that leg.
Heavily bruised is the left thigh of Varelans. Those are from the kicks by Ruas.
Called him the most complete fighter, but...
Oh, boy. That left leg, he can't stand on it much longer. He really ate a big kick there.
He's got to block them there. He's got to block them. That's all he has to do. It's very simple. There it is.
Doing a good job at it, isn't he?
Well, now he is, but it's a day late, $1 short. He's taking a lot of punishment on that left leg. There it is again.
And the alternative for him is to go to the mat where he knows that Ruas is most dangerous, and that's not a good option. Oh my, Ruas firing leg kicks at will.
And using his speed and motion to keep Varelans away.
This is the most effective leg kicking we have seen in the UFC.
Absolutely. But as you can see, it is effective. I mean, you can see now that a strike to the thigh does some damage.
Now he goes the other way. And that's not a bad idea because you won't know which way to turn. Before long, he'll be the leaning tower of Varelans.
Now, the best thing Varelans could do is back up and let Ruas come to him at this point. The reason he can get those leg kicks in easily is he's walking forward, walking right into them. Varelans needs to sit back and just counter a little bit. Just sit back and let Ruas come to him. Let him make the fight.
Oh. Big shot by Ruas. The leg and the hands. Back to the left. Down goes Varelans.
Oh, they're not throwing in the towel. I can't believe it.
A spectacular close by
already had thought striking don't work. You don't strike. You just take dudes down and choke them out. Striking is a hoax. But he was leg kicking Paul Varelans. Like he probably landed 30 leg kicks. And finally at the end, the dude collapsed. He was limping and then he collapsed. And then fucking Marco Huas finished him off. And then from that point on, the whole world's like, okay, the one strike that works is leg kicks. Okay. So that's how retarded we were. We were so retarded, like, okay, leg kicks. So then Brazilians started practicing leg kicks. Okay, that works. And then, head kicks do not work. Head kicks, that's Jackie Chan movie shit. And then when Maurice Smith head kicked Conan Silveira, I think it was in Battlecade on one of those side shows, those one and done shows, he head kicked Conan and Maurice Smith head kicked him and knocked him out. And then we're like, oh shit, was he lucky or do head kicks really work?
Silveira showing some fatigue, and Smith pounds it downstairs with the leg.
Little blood in the left eye.
You don't see that much for Conan Silveira.
I see some fear on his face.
Yes. He's not used to this.
Conan's a great, great fighter.
Big kick to the head. Silveira in tremendous trouble. A bomb by Smith is
That's
over.
a fight. It's a knockout. It's a knockout.
Tremendous athletic feat, literally, by Maurice Smith. A bomb. He had been showing that the entire fight. This is what surprised and shocked Conan. Bomb right up there. Around the jaw area. He had been going low. Showing low, then he goes around with a sweep kick. It looked to the temple area, disrupting the equilibrium of Conan Silveira, and that's how you can win that fast. This is tremendous by Maurice Smith.
Like we were like doubting head kicks, and now it's gotten to the point. Now we know when everybody knows all three phases of the game, the striking, the wrestling, and the jiu-jitsu, it all works. Kung Fu works. Kung Fu and Taekwondo works if you got good wrestling and you got good jiu-jitsu. But if you don't have wrestling and you don't have jiu-jitsu and you're going against a guy that does, your shit ain't gonna work. So that's what we found out. Hoist went in there and he was battling dudes who didn't know really, except for Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock was a grappler and he still got him. Man, the whole evolution of martial arts and in regards to what works and what doesn't work, shit. Go ahead.
No, I refer to as two great revolutions in the history of martial arts. One is Jigoro Kano for creating the very concept of what we now refer to as martial arts. I know he didn't invent all martial arts, but the idea of martial arts as a means to education, that's his idea. He battled for that idea. So today, parents take their kids to whether it's Taekwondo, Judo, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They take their parents because to a martial art to train their children because Jigoro Kano convinced the Japanese Ministry of Education that teaching children how to fight was a good idea. So that's the first. That's not an easy sell. Teaching children how to fight is a good idea. He did that. Okay, so that's the first great revolution. The second is the UFC, and it took like over 100 years for that to happen because the UFC is the laboratory, to your point, that is going to determine what works and what doesn't. So I got in a lot of trouble online recently when I said this. It's like, look, if it's not in the UFC, then to the flames. Like it doesn't belong in the conversation. It's like, oh, what about the moves that haven't been tested yet? Okay, after 30 years of all martial arts being exposed to the UFC, I think we have a good idea of what works and what doesn't. Now, I haven't seen a berimbolo in MMA. It's not impossible. Yeah. But I don't think any MMA coach on the planet is going about teaching berimbolos in MMA because it happened one time. Like you stick to what works. And we know what works at this point. And we have that because of the second revolution that was ignited by Rorion and Royce Gracie, who brought a tradition from Brazil that goes back to the 1930s in Brazil, George Gracie and Chico Soledade. And 60 years after, it was born in Brazil. I try not to use these words, but it was something fairly new, it really was. And it was brought to the United States, and it shocked the martial arts community because it forced us, Eddie, to rethink empirically what is the purpose of combat, what works in combat, and when is it that we are being bullshitted, and when is it that we are learning the truth about combat. And that is possible because of MMA. So it was a game changer. There's martial arts before and after the UFC. The UFC changed everything.
Yeah.
And it made us rethink combat. Like, I love Spider Guard, but I know that it doesn't work in a real fight. I know these differences, but people ask me, right? So I know these things. So I know that there's a sportive version of jiu-jitsu that I teach. But I know what works and what works in a fight. I don't have to speculate anymore. Whereas in Bruce Lee's day, it's all speculation. Before UFC, it's all speculation. Oh, I think this works. Really? How would you know? Have you tested this in thousands of matches between you and your students and your peers? No, so you don't know. You're speculating. All martial arts prior to the UFC were based on personal preferences and speculation. None of them were scientific in the way I mean it. And because of the UFC, now it is possible that at least we understand what does work and what doesn't in a real fight. Granted, the UFC still has limitations, right? But yeah, so you can't allow eye gouging, otherwise you can't have a sport.
Yeah.
So that's like the argument that self-defense experts make. Oh, I'm just going to eye gouge. Yeah, you try to eye gouge Islam Makhachev while he shoots a double leg on you and see how far you make it.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of these guys, like, they go cuckoo with like some of their beliefs, but there's nothing better than MMA, Eddie. That's my point.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing greater. There's nothing more efficient than MMA. It's tested and tried. That's where it comes from. It comes from empirical trials. You can't beat it.
Yeah, I mean, if you were about to get in a fight with two dudes and you had a choice of a average UFC fighter and some martial arts 10th degree, karate black belt who's never been in a fight, I would take the average MMA fighter, in a real fight. Even though they go, oh, that's not real fighting. I'm like, yo, trust me. MMA fighters will be fine on the fucking street. You got what's better than an MMA fighter on the street? You fucking crazy? You got who's better in an MMA fight or a street fight than an MMA fighter? Like who is there someone else like Krav Maga? Like
yeah, exactly. Who's more skilled than the guy who's been sparring every day, getting hit in the face? Yeah. And it's delusion, Eddie. There's so much martial arts there's so much lore and delusion. Yeah. In martial arts, it's some of it is embarrassing because I used to believe a lot of this. I, like you and everyone else, I was also shocked when I saw Royce Gracie take people down.
Yeah,
but like we have to abandon this Hollywood interpretation, like this Master Miyagi versus Cobra Kai. My God, Cobra Kai would murder Daniel-san in a fight. Yeah. We all know this, but selling the guy who does meditation on the beach is better for selling memberships.
Yeah,
because you don't have to sweat, Eddie. That's why it's popular, because you don't have to work hard. Cobra Kai has to work hard. Daniel-san meditates on the beach. Oh, that's easy. I can do that. Yeah. That's why it's so popular, because it appeals to the nerdy crowd who doesn't want to sweat. But it's bogus. We know it. It's a hoax. It's a fraud. It's not how combat is difficult, man. Combat is real. It hurts. You're going to be tired. You're going to get hit. People are going to take you down. It's not going to be fun. It's not fun. We love it because it's real, but it's not something, I wouldn't call it fun.
Yeah. And people, the people that say, I want to train no, and I'm a pure no-gi guy. I got my black belt in the gi, but I train in the gi like once a year. But when people say, oh, when you get in a street fight, dudes aren't wearing robes, so your gi jiu-jitsu ain't gonna work. I'm like, yo, you got it all twisted. If a guy trained 10 years in the gi, never trained no gi, and he fought a guy on the streets who's never done jiu-jitsu, those gi habits aren't going to matter. He's going to run right through that guy. Yeah. Even if the guy's, greased up, not wearing a shirt, has a thong, they're in West Hollywood, he's still going to fuck him up. So don't get it twisted like, oh, you're training in the gi, that's not going to work in a street fight. Dude, trust me, it'll work in a street fight. Because if you're going to fight someone on the streets, 99% of the time, that guy has no training. The odds that you're going to fight a guy who has training, it's tiny. It's tiny.
These days, it's increased. Like 20 years ago, it was 0.000. Now there's like a 1%, 2% chance.
Yeah, you're right.
Enough
you're right.
More than ever.
Changed. Now more than ever. Yes, you never know. You never know. So I had this when I was a blue belt. I was while I was a DJ at a strip club, the bouncer at the street club was a purple belt under Hickson. And his name was Eric Mickley. God rest his soul, he's not with us anymore. But this guy, he had a tie that had Velcro because he was just there ready to fuck dudes up. And he, was looking. He would have a suit, a jacket, a tie that got pulled off with Velcro, and have knee pads under his slacks. He was ready to fight all the time, and he would choke people out like, you know, you'd hear about it like once every few months. Some drunk guy at the strip club spent $800 on some chick, and then she disappeared. She lied to him, and he's all freaking out, you know. So you got to go choke him out. But there was this one guy where I was actually there. Guy was all pissed off, spent all his money. It's like talking shit to one of the strippers. You fucking bitch and all this shit. So Eric said, "Oh shit." He had the manager Jeff Bryce said, "Eric will handle this." So they pushed him outside, and I'm just right there, Bob, like watching this. Pushed him outside, and the guy's all drunk. Goes, "Fuck this place! You know how much money I dropped in this fucking place? I pay the light bills. I pay fucking the mortgage on this motherfucker. And this bitch has the fucking nerve." He's like talking all sorts of shit. So he rips off his shirt, and right there in the parking lot. And like Eric Mickley's, he's only 5'8", but he's fucking like 190. He's like a power lifter, but he's not that tall. So the guy was probably like 6'2", pulls off his shirt, and Eric's just standing there. He pulls off his tie, and the guy's like, "Fuck you, what are you gonna do, you motherfucking midget," or whatever. And I was just like, holy shit. It was a double leg. There was no need to guard pass. He double legged him, because the guy don't have a guard. He don't know. Double legged him right into the mount. Punched him like fucking 3 times. It was like all within 2 seconds. The guy turns around, like what always happens, to protect his face, and then he chokes him out, face down in the asphalt. The dude's out, and I'll never forget, Eric just stands up and goes, "Is that all you got? Nice fight, asshole," and then walks away. I was like, what? I'm like, jiu-jitsu rules. I was like, oh my God, jiu-jitsu fucking rules. I never got to do that in my life. I never got to choke anybody out in real life. A lot of jiu-jitsu guys, especially in the bar scene, there's situations where they get to have their choke out. I never choked anybody out in my life. You know what I mean? Never been in a fight since I've been.
I had one opportunity to choke someone out once in a fight. It was nice. It was nice to know it works. You know what I found? It's very.
Did he go out? He went out?
Yeah, he went out.
What was he doing?
It was in college, and the guy was causing a lot of problems with my friends. And I was a purple belt.
Okay.
And he was causing a lot of problems with my friends. And then I tried to stop him, just talk to the guy or calm him down. And then he got in my face and basically called me out. I'm like, all right, let's roll.
What happened in 2003 Abu Dhabi was from Cocoon. I got there from having my guard pass and using a jailbreak. The jailbreak escape only works in regular side control. Not all side controls are the same. This regular side control, I know just based on where my knee is, he can't get that right leg in. So most people feel safe here. But this space right here, especially if you have flexibility, this is huge. This will save your ass. Get your, instead of getting your guard pass and getting mounted and getting crushed with an arm triangle, you get your guard pass and you recover and you have another life. And now he's gonna try to sweep me. I base and then hits me with a trap. Boom. There we go with the jailbreak. Put him right back in the guard as he passes. Now he passes my guard. Bam! Blasted right through. Now I'm going to jailbreak him back in. Here we go. I got the overhook on his right arm with my left arm. Then I'm gonna grab his wrist. That's the key. He can't pull back because of the overhook. Bam, the triangle's on. I knew all I had to do was cinch it on and it was over. I knew he wouldn't be able to get out.
O norte-americano, olha só, encaixou o triângulo, o Roller tenta.
Ele pesou bastante sobre... Bateu a mão.
Bateu o Roller Grace. Olha só, vencendo a luta por 6-2.
Uma surpresa, hein? Uma grande surpresa.
Ed Bravo dos Estados Unidos vencendo a Harley Grace.
And then I choked him out. We know what's funny about that? I was on his back in like 10 seconds, like straight to the back, choke him out. It was like training with a beginner white belt.
Yeah.
I was afterwards. I was very calm. I was in competition mode. I was competing like every other weekend back in Brazil. And when I finally put him, I always thought in a real fight I'd be really nervous. I'm gonna be nervous. Man, I was so calm. I'm like, remember, like my heart rate is low. It's not even high. I'm like, oh. It was just something that, because I think I had become so used to managing my emotions. That was like the big, I mean, me beating a white belt was not insightful. It was like what I expected of myself. But the fact that I could remain so calm, and I think that was something I learned in competition, like, you know, how to cool your nerves and stay in charge and not panic, which is something a lot of like self-defense experts don't know how to do. They've never competed. You can't even handle your emotions in a tournament. How are you going to handle them in a real fight?
Exactly. That's why competition. I tell all my students and non-students who I talk to, I go, should I compete? What if I don't compete? I'm like, you got competing, whether you win or lose. You have to learn for yourself that the nerves you get, the fear that enters your soul when confrontation arrives, whether you're at a club or you're in line at the movies and you're with your girl and some guy's talking shit, like all that fear and all those nerves, you have to learn that you can win without that fear and those nerves. Because if you don't know and you haven't tested it, you already think, I'm going to lose. I feel weak. Oh my God, I can't do nothing. I'm so scared. But because you never competed. You never went through that. And in competition, in the beginning, you might feel really nervous. Your coach is there. Your girlfriend's there. Your kids are there. You might feel real nervous and you're thinking a lot of guys. I would say at least half of the guys that I've ever known that competed for the first time, they were so nervous, they just thought they were going to lose. There's like, no way I can compete like this.
But it's something you get better at.
I'm shaking. And then they learn, like, they won. I go, you won, you were shaking and you won. Don't forget that. Next time you compete and you start shaking, you get nervous, you got to remind yourself, I won like this before. And then little by little, you go, okay, I'm nervous. And then you become at peace and at one with the nerves and the anxiety. And you realize that, damn, if I wasn't nervous, it would be because I'm fighting some duck. But the reason I'm nervous is because this is a challenge. And if there wasn't a challenge, the win wouldn't mean anything. So there has to be nerves for you to feel good if you win, and if you lose, you know what? That doesn't matter. You just learn from it and you keep going forward. But you got the experience of facing a confrontation, a challenge, because the nerves you get in a street fight are the exact same nerves you get in competition. When all your friends are there, you get nervous. You're like, fuck, there's a lot of pressure. This guy's going to fucking choke me. This guy might choke me out in front of my whole team. That's a lot of nerves. It's the exact same feeling. The exact same feeling is when you're on the streets and there's a guy talking shit and you got your friends around like, fuck, is this guy going to fuck me up on the street? Is he going to bash my head in the concrete? So once you learn how to win with fear, then that's where you need to get to. So in a street fight, in a street confrontation, when you have that fear, you're like, you already know, I'm worried. Shit could happen. You never know, but I know I could win. I could win with fear. So that's the importance of competition.
No, I couldn't agree more. No one has ever been made a worse human being for competing, win or lose. And you compete enough, Eddie, and you compete enough, and you're a coach, you competed yourself, you know this. After a while, man, winning and losing are one and the same thing.
Yeah.
After a while, because it stops being about the perks and the ego and the prestige and the money and the medal, and it starts being about the growth. And once you see that, I regret, like, for example, not to deviate too much in the conversation, but I have I've never lost in MMA. I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud. There's nothing to be proud of. I didn't fight the best. Why? When people, sometimes it comes up in seminars, like, oh, this guy's in the fight, it means nothing to me.
You had
it means nothing. I wish.
How many fights did you have?
I wish. 9. I wish I had lost, because and I have this maturity now. I'm retired, but when I was fighting, I didn't. I was so scared of losing that I didn't perform. I would freeze because I was too scared of losing. Like I couldn't in my mind, like, I can't lose, and that holds you back. So I tell my guys, it's like, just get rid of that, man. No one's going to stop loving you if you lose, and you're going to learn something and you're going to get better. You got to stay on that. It's not about the achievement, man. It's about the growth. My real accomplishment to me is growing as a human through and because competition.
Yeah.
Competition made me into the person I am today, and I'm so thankful for it. I wish I had, like when I lost to Roger in the final of the Worlds, twice in one semifinal, lost him 3 times back to back. I would have had 5 world titles if it were not for him, 3 or 4 at least. Black belt world titles.
So you fought Roger Gracie
I look back,
3 times?
Yeah. I mean, no, I lost to him 3 times,
Did he submit you, or did you lose by points?
All 4 times. All 4 times submitted me. I couldn't score a point on the guy.
He's pretty fucking amazing. I mean,
he's looking now in 2026. I can say this and go, I'm grateful that happened to me because I learned so much. But at the time, of course, you don't want to hear it. You're just, I'm losing my mind because I can't score a point on this guy. And I was in my prime too. It's not like I have no excuses. I was like, we're the same age, Yeah. But you
guys the same size, same weight?
No. Well, we fought in the same weight class, but he's like a good 2 inches. He's like tall, man. I want to say he's like 6'5".
Yeah.
I'm 6'3". He's a weird guy to grapple. I'll say that. It's a weird guy thing because he's so out of proportion to what you're used to, But anyway, I look back at it and I go, like, I'm so happy that I went through that experience because I learned a lot from him. I'm a better coach because of it, So I think we add too much weight when we're young and competing to a victory, and I don't think it's the right way of looking at it. You should really look at the process itself as that's the end. The end is the process, not the medal. The medal is just a side effect of hard work, but it's not the end goal.
Roger Gracie's considered, probably top 5 ever in BJJ as far as grappling competition. He's up there on Mount Rushmore. And so is Marcelo Garcia. Marcelo Garcia is definitely up there too. And you had a tremendous win over him. You darsed him, correct?
Correct.
Do you remember if you were nervous before fighting him? Because at that point, he was just the GOAT. I mean, Marcelo Garcia was just running through everybody. Were you nervous?
I will say this before I answer that question. I still consider him to have like the most. I don't pretend to be better at jiu-jitsu than him. I was better that one day, but like Chris Weidman was better than Anderson Silva twice, but I don't think he was overall a better fighter than Anderson Silva. I know where I sit in this whole story. Marcelo is different, man. He's got this finesse to him that it's like watching Ronaldinho play soccer. Like you can't. It's just you just admire it. Like there are very few people that I admire that I enjoy watching for having finesse when they move, like such perfect movement and timing, and being a good character, good person too. He's the nicest guy, and he's genuinely nice. He's not fake. He's not Instagram nice. He's truly like a good, like a very, very humble person. But I wasn't nervous, man, believe it or not. Like I always get nervous. Whenever I got nervous, it was my first match. That's normally the second one I was better. By the time I always liked like doing everything in one day. I hate the way I do it now. It's like 4 fights and 4 and 4, 5 and 5, or 3 and 3. I hate that. I want to do everything in one day because by match 6, 7, 8, I'm actually doing better. Like some of my best performances when I won weight class and open 10 matches in one day. I do better as I go. Yeah. And I remember my good friend of mine, Sean Rigo, was like warming me up in the backstage, and I'm like smiling, and I'm smiling, right? This is I'm final of the ADCC, and I'm smiling, and my Sean goes, Rob, stop smiling, like focus. He's trying to get me to do yoga, breathing, and he's trying to. And I don't want to do fucking yoga right now. I'm happy, and I was happy. I was in a very, very happy state. I remember that, and I was not nervous at all. I was very, very calm. I was very confident that and I felt like this, Eddie, maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. I think in basketball, they call it being in the zone, right? Like you're just in the zone. And like I was in the zone there for that brief moment. And I'm a mortal who grappled a god. And, strangely enough, I won that day. But I'm a mortal guy. Like, I'm not like them. I'm not like Roger and Marcelo. Like these guys are God. I'm a mortal who had the balls to fight them. But I had a moment there, a glimpse of what it feels like to be a god, because I was feeling invincible that day. That moment right there, I felt invincible. And I can't feel like that all the time. I wish I could. I wish I could switch something in my head and feel that way every day of my life because it's an amazing feeling. I maybe felt like that 2 or 3 times in my life and it never came back.
And that was the finals of the Absolute ADCC 2005? 2007. And that was against Marcelo?
Correct.
He made it to the finals. So that was in the finals. Okay. I wasn't aware of like where that was in the tournament, but the only time I had a match and I had zero fear, the only time was at the ADCC trials in 2002 for the 2003 show. So 2002, the trials were in San Diego, and during the rules meeting, the brackets were already out. And during the rules meeting, the guy that I was supposed to go against, he was a Matt Hume guy. He was like trying to get in my head because he knew we were the first match. He was trying to get in my head. So we're asking questions about the rules and the points and all this shit. And anytime I would say something, he'd have like a smart aleck remark. You know what I mean? And then like one thing he said, he goes, I said something about the time, 2 minutes, 3 or something about time. And then he goes, it doesn't matter how much time you're going to get submitted anyways. What's the point in worrying about time? And I looked over him. I go, man, you are, he goes, I'm going to tap you in under 2 minutes anyways. And I looked over, I'm like, man, you are underestimating my defense. I bet I could last 3-4 minutes with you. I bet 2 minutes, shit, I could go 3-4 minutes before you tap me. So I was trying to get back in his head with some like reverse psychology. And then he just kept yipping and yapping. He kept going because I kept coming back at him and playing some psychological warfare on him, you know? I wasn't telling him I could kick his ass or nothing. I was saying you could kick my ass, but not as fast as you think you can. I could last longer than you think I can. So he didn't know how to react to that, right? So then we were the first match and we were going to go like in 10 minutes. And I'm sitting there, I forget who was in my corner, but I'm sitting there. And Alan Teo from Henzo's Academy, he was leg lock. He was a good leg locker. And I was worried about the leg locks. And I go, that's that guy right there from Henzo's. Apparently he's really good with foot locks, man. I got to watch my feet. And he goes, dude, and then the guy that was talking shit, he goes, why are you worried about him? You're not even going to get past me. And then I said, let's warm up. And he goes, what? I go, let's warm up. So I forced him to warm. Everybody's there. Dean Lister, Roy Nelson. So many people were right there. Barry Yoshida, they were all right there. I just grabbed him. I go, let's fucking warm up. Dude, and I fucking ran through this motherfucker by force. He didn't know what was going on. And I was just doing everything I wanted to him. And then they go, first match, you're next. I go, it's time to go. And as I'm walking out, this is the only time I had no fear. Because I already knew, I'm like, dude, I'm going to kill this guy. So as I was walking out, Jean-Jacques grabs me and goes, listen, just focus, breathe. And I go, Jean-Jacques, because he's used to telling me that because I'm usually hyperventilating and fucking freaking out. Yeah. Fuck, oh my God, Jean-Jacques, I don't feel like shit. So he was like coaching me. He goes, just breathe, relax, just play your game. Just play your game. I go, Jean-Jacques, you don't have to worry about this. I'm going to fuck this guy up. He goes, what? He had never seen me with that much confidence. That was the only match I've ever had confidence. All of the matches, I was scared to death.
It's you know what? Some people have that natural. I have in mind now, you probably remember this. Remember when Gordon Ryan fought Leandro Lo, Nogi? Remember? It was an ADCC trials, I say, a super fight. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I don't remember that match. I don't.
Okay, and Gordon was still coming up. Like he was still an up and coming guy. He was not. He wasn't an ADCC champion yet. And Leandro Lo was like maybe next to Buchecha, the number 2 jiu-jitsu guy in the world, Buchecha, and then Leandro Lo. You know. And I remember Gordon walking on those mats, and he was so confident. I'm like, you think you're going to beat Leandro Lo? You're out of your mind. But he did believe it. Like it was something he had. And some people, and I think some people just have that, like Conor has that. Like he was like, oh, there are guys out there better than Conor, sure. But like that confidence, man, like where does that come from? Yeah. I never had that. I wish I had that. I had to work on my confidence daily, bro. Like fucking working on it. I had to tell myself every day, 1,000,000 times a day, you deserve to win. You do everything right. You've paid the price. You're good. You train hard. It was an uphill battle for me, you know, but some people just like, they just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be the best in the world. And they do it. You know, it's something I admire, but I don't think it's, I don't think these guys don't work hard. I know they do. There's no doubt about it. But I think that level of confidence is something I think that's something unique, man. It's not some people have it, some people don't.
I never really, except for that one match, I was always scared to death. I was just happy to be in the mix. Like when I did the trials, I did not expect to win. I was just like, I'm just in the mix. You know what I mean? Cool. Because those trials,
I remember when you won. Didn't you win one in Las Vegas? You said San Diego. You won a match it was a trials in Las Vegas.
No. The only trials I did were for ADCC were in San Diego.
No.
I was like Grappler's Quest or something.
Yes. Yeah.
It was like that. I did like that in Vegas.
I was
nothing significant.
I was there. That would have been 2000, 2001. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was there. Jake Shields was there. I remember Jake Shields was there.
Tony D'Souza, remember him?
Tony D'Souza invented the Peruvian necktie on me, on my neck.
On you.
On my neck. I was the dummy. I was like the I remember this is a true. I had just gotten my purple belt, and Tony was a blue belt. Not very proud of this story, but it's a funny story. And I used, like, normally I did, good with Tony, but Tony was really weird to grapple, man. Like, Tony was a weird guy to grapple. He would do weird shit. And he got me in the front headlock, and he puts me away with that what later will become known as the Peruvian necktie. And I'm just, in my mind, it's just like, I just tapped to a blue belt. I got to go kill myself now. Like, in my mind, like, no, but you don't understand. Like, that's my only quality, Eddie. I'm competitive. That's the only real talent I have, is being competitive. And I'm losing. I remember throwing my purple belt on the roof of JSEC. It's probably still there on Cyrus and Valley View. And I threw I don't deserve a purple belt. I just got tapped by a blue belt. And then, of course, the next day I don't have a purple belt, so I had to go get a new one. But it was what Tony D'Souza was. I was right there when he invented that. I'll give you another. Kiss the Dragon.
That's move, the Arambolo sweep to the back.
Yeah. I was in the room when that was invented too. Like I remember where we were when we were like I wasn't the guy who did it. It was Andre, if memory serves. And but I remember we were in the corner, and he named it after that Jet Li movie where he sticks a needle on the guy's neck. It was Kiss the Dragon. Yeah.
Oh, I did not know.
Yeah, there's a little. I'm sure he wasn't the first person to do it though. Like
Are you aware that the leg drag got invented on me?
Was that Leo or no?
Leo Vera invented the leg drag on me. He leg dragged me like.
But he did it before. He did it to Shaolin in 97. There's on YouTube you can find. I want to say 96, 97, maybe 98.
Okay.
And he hits it on Shaolin like 2 or 3 times. But it was definitely Leo, the first person I ever seen do it.
Okay.
And
so Lucas Lett maybe he was just fucking with me. He was trolling me because Lucas Lett told me that, and Lucas Lett is Leo Vieira's protege. And he said he edited it on me. But the whole Leo Vieira thing, he fucked me up in ADCC. But when I won the trials, I did not expect to. I was shocked. I was like, whoa, how did I win? And but Leo Vieira was there at the trials, and the previous ADCC, he was doing 170. And John Jock beat him. So then he decided to cut down to my weight category. So he was... This is what he said after he beat me in a magazine article. He said that because I won the thing in his division, so he had his eye on me, and he had Lucas Lett replicate my style to get him ready for me because he was worried about me. And when I heard he was cutting down to 145, I was worried about him. I'm like, dude, Jean-Jacques beat him, but Jean-Jacques didn't submit him, and Jean-Jacques submits me anytime he wants. So I thought, like, damn, this guy survived Jean-Jacques. I can't survive Jean-Jacques. So I was really worried about Leo Vieira.
I got a story about that.
What's that?
I got a story about that. I will not share it with you here, but once we turn off the recording, I'll share it with you because it's an off, but I'll share a good story with you about that.
So this is the story. So, according to Leo Vieira, he talked about it. He was like had his eye on me because I won like most technical fighter of ADCC trials and all that. So he was a little concerned about me. I just thought I got lucky, and I'm like, fuck, how did I win? What the fuck? So now I'm going to ADCC Sao Paulo 2003. I'm a brown belt. Everybody's virtually like a black belt world champion. Hoyler, Leo Vieira. I'm like, I'm not even that. Leo Vieira is overshadowing Hoyler, in my opinion, because Like he just seems like just a super athlete, the new generation. Hoyler, still, Hoyler was undefeated in ADCC. No one ever scored a point on him. Up to that point, he won 3 ADCCs in a row. I should have been more worried about him than Leo, but Leo had he was in my head, and so I went to Brazil, thinking like, okay, I'm going to get my ass kicked, but I got a free trip to Brazil. I'm going to go to the fucking churrascarias. I'm going to eat acai every day and, try to hit on chicks, and all that shit. So I had no expectations. I go, these guys are going to fuck me up. I'm just a brown belt. So I get there. I weigh in, had trouble making, it was, the weight cut was horrible. I'm not a true athlete. I suck at weight cuts. So first match was against Gustavo Dantas. And, I think he was like a world champion in the other world champion. I think there's like a Nova.
He won worlds 98 purple belt, 99 brown belt. I beat Jeff.
Okay. So I thought, okay, this guy's going to fuck me up. You know what I mean? And Mark Lehman's in his corner and shit. I go, okay, here we go. And I beat him. I rear naked choked him. And I was like, God damn, how did I win? I was shocked. I went in there going, I'm going to lose, but I'm just going to have fun, and then we're going to party afterwards, whatever. I'm not going to beat this black belt. He's going to fuck me up. But I won. I'm like, oh, shit. So then Hoyler was next. And I'm like, okay, so I had a little more confidence, but I'm like, damn, I'm standing across from Hoyler, like my idol. He was like, because all little guys, they looked up to Hoyler because Hoyler was the little guy that was super technical and never said he's better than Hoyes. He's super technical. He wins in ADCC. He wins in the gi. He does MMA. This guy does everything. He's like Henzo. And I looked at him. It's weird. It's like you're looking at him. It was like I was looking at a 3D screen. I'm like, that's Hoyler? Holy fucking shit. I was like mesmerized. I couldn't fucking believe it. And I'm fighting my hero? Like what?
I can control what I put into my mouth. I can control what I feed to my child. I can control how I grow my food and if I want to spray pesticides or not, but I cannot control the experiments over my head.
Within an hour, it spreads out, it creates a blanket.
We're in a war. This is a war against me, you, our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come. This is war raged upon us.
These programs consist of spraying tons of patented aerosol pollutants into our skies without public consent. This includes aluminum, barium, strontium, and more.
It's targeting your food, your water, and it's coming in multiple different ways.
If people want to know if this is a real thing, states have bills to ban it.
I think there are now 32 states that have taken an attempt at this. This has become a huge issue.
If your average citizen knew the truth of what's going on and what they're being exposed to without their consent, they would be outraged and they would take action.
I don't want some creep ramming chemicals down my throat without my permission.
We need to prosecute those people that are doing it.
Do we stand in one spot and say enough is enough, and if they don't listen, we take it to the next step?
You've been doing this for a while?
Yep.
Long time. People do care.
Yeah.
We care deeply.
I know that.
So we're now getting really involved, and now we're going to bring something legal against your company.
But he looks skinny. So anytime someone looks anytime someone looks skinnier than me, that gives me confidence. If I look at someone, I'm like, okay, this guy doesn't look as strong as me. Because I feel the only confidence I have is if I feel that I'm stronger than you, I feel that the only way you're going to beat me is if you're stronger than me. If you're not stronger than me, you ain't going to beat me. That's how I feel. And usually everyone looks stronger than me because I'm not yoked. I'm not like buff. I've never been like a tank. So every time I fight someone, it's usually someone who's yoked. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to fucking overpower me. So anyways, I go against Hoyler. He's way stronger than I thought. As soon as we locked up, I'm like, holy shit, this guy's strong as fuck. And I got lucky. I was losing the whole match in the last 45 seconds. I got a lucky triangle. And I'm like, fuck, and I couldn't believe it. I started crying. I'm like, what?
You never call these things lucky, man.
Yeah.
You never call these things.
All he had to do was just stay in my guard. He lost because he passed my guard. He passed my guard. I jailbreaked him and then threw him in a triangle in one transition. All Jean-Jacques stuff. It was all Jean-Jacques, except for the jailbreak. But the overhook to the triangle thing, that's Jean-Jacques 101. So, but if he would have just stayed in my guard for another 45 seconds, if he wouldn't have been so aggressive, he would have won. And I wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
But then the next, everyone's like backstage going, fuck, you beat Hoyler. Everyone's freaking out. But I'm already thinking Leo Vieira's next. I'm already thinking, oh my God, this guy's Like it's like winning the Super Bowl and everyone, dude, you won the Super Bowl. I'm like, they're about to take the Super Bowl away from me right now. I'm about to go, this is all going to end. This is only lasting until Leo Vera crushes me. So I already lost in my head. I'm like, Leo Vera's going to fucking kill my party. I wish that we would have did that fight the next day so I could party and celebrate that night and be like a bad motherfucker for one night. But I was a bad motherfucker for like 45 minutes. And then they called my name out and it was Leo Vera. And I was walking out already going, fuck, he's killing my birthday celebration. He's killing my Super Bowl. He's going to kill it. He's going to take it all away. That's what I was thinking. And when I walked out, he's sitting like in a lotus position on the mats and Comprido is in his ear. You know, the guy with the blue hair, the tall guy, he's in his ear and it's loud. They're fucking playing jungle music and shit. And I'm walking out terrified. And I look over at Leo Vieira and he's meditating while Rodrigo Medeiros is screaming in his ear. I don't know what he's saying. He's like, "Well, that's your boy that got shot. Your boy that shot." And Leo Vieira is like, he's doing that Hickson breathing. Like he's really preparing for me. He has no idea that that's so unnecessary. I'm terrified. I'm like, I have zero strength. I'm walking in thinking I'm going to lose. And he's preparing because he's thinking, damn, that's that dude who won the trials. That's that dude I've been preparing for. And now it's showtime. He just triangled Euler. And he rear naked choked Gustavo Dantas. He's terrified. And I'm the one way more terrified than he is. I'm looking at him going, dude, all that Hickson breathing is unnecessary. And, you know, and I was right. He fucked me up. He passed my guard, I think 9 times. He beat me like 30-0. He just completely destroyed me. And I thought
it was hard. It's hard to stop his passing. Even like when I was like black belt in my prime, like his passing is his you know what it is with it? It's like his agility. Like he can move so well and precise.
Acrobatic, yes.
It's hard to match. It's like, I want to move like that. What can I do? I don't know what I have to do. I can never move that way. Like some people just have that precision of that agility that it's something you can improve on. But Leo has it exceptionally well. Like Leo with no training has better cardio than most triathletes, you know, with zero training. Yeah. He's just like that guy.
I was terrified of him just because Jean-Jacques couldn't put him away. I was terrified. I go, dude, Jean-Jacques owns me. He does whatever he wants to me. I can't do shit to that dude. So, you know, I fly home. I'm like depressed, you know, and I get home. But people are talking more about the Euler win than getting crushed by Leo. So I'm like, damn, maybe I should open up a school. And my friends are going, dude, open up a school, dude, quit your job. Your job sucks. I go, damn, maybe I should start teaching jiu-jitsu. That was not in the cards. I was a grown-ass man. I'm 33 years old, grown-ass man, not even thinking about teaching jiu-jitsu. I'm trying to make it in the music business. I was always trying to just, where's your new demo? Are you sending it to the record labels? It was always about a record deal. But then when I got back, I go, you know what? Instead of writing comedy for the Man Show, which was a nightmare job, I go, I'm going to teach jiu-jitsu until I get a record deal. So I thought 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu is just going to be temporary, like a year or 2 or 3. And then I got my record, then I'll get my record deal. Then I start touring the world and I'll take my jiu-jitsu friends on the road with me and we'll be like Zoltan and do jiu-jitsu, you know, after sound check every day or something like that. That was the plan. My plan was to be like Zoltan. It didn't work out. But thank God my music sucks because I love where I'm at right now, man. I love it. I love, you know, the life that I was blessed with, you know, is a complete blessing just to teach people how to save their own lives and to save the ones they love. That's really
Yeah. No, it's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
It's a big responsibility. It's a lovely job. I have my days, you know, there are days where I go like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like I get tired of it sometimes, you know, and then I remember, you know what, you know, when I get tired is like, sometimes I have to get up and I got to put up with like, you know, people, it's never good enough. If you're a coach, it's never enough. It's always giving. You have to get used to giving. Yeah. But I'll say this, man, no matter how tired I am, the second I start teaching, I light up. Yeah. The second I start teaching, I'm on fire for those 2 hours that I'm teaching. I'm like in the zone, happy. My mind is going. I'll crash afterwards, but it doesn't matter, man. So I don't think I'll ever stop. I love what I do, and I wish my body weren't falling apart.
Me too.
I wish I could move the way I used to 20 years. Like, it just sucks getting old, man.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, it's as close to a perfect life as I could have lived. It's been an amazing journey.
Amen, man. Now let's take it back to the origins of jiu-jitsu, Carlos Gracie, Maeda, and how Ivan Gomez, that's like a star that nobody talks about, and then George Gracie. They don't talk about George Gracie. They don't talk about Ivan Gomez. What was the real story of the origins and the birth of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, aka Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? 50-50. 50-50. Hell yeah.
So this is a fight in the early 60s between Ivan Gomez and Euclides Pereira, the guy I interviewed. And they're exchanging blows inside of 50-50. How cool is that?
I've seen that exact exchange in some Shudo fight, like from the late 90s, where dudes were in 50-50 and they were punching each other. You can reach the face, but the conclusion that I've gotten so far on the data I've seen, like in combat jiu-jitsu, you could hit in 50-50. I realized that throwing punches in 50-50, generally, depending on the angle, it's almost like a waste of time. You can't really connect because you're not close enough.
You're more likely to get heel hooked. I wouldn't hit people.
Yeah.
I try to get the fuck out or finish. You know?
Yeah, there's like in my style of grappling, if it's all clinch based. So if you have your clinch, it's a bad idea to punch because you're going to lose your clinch. Now you got to reestablish the clinch. So the only time I would strike or I would advise my MMA students to strike is if you don't have your clinch, you can't get your clinch on. That's when you're striking, when you can't get a clinch. But if you're like in the mount and you have your head and arm, don't let that shit go and strike. Let's get an arm triangle. Let's take the back. Let's take an arm bar. You already got your clinch. Why would you let it go? So basic, that's just a little philosophy. But let's go back to Carlos Gracie, Maeda. What's the real story? Because the story that we get, the main narrative is like Maeda took Carlos Gracie under his wing because his dad, Gastão, was friends with Maeda, and Maeda taught Carlos as privates. But then you hear another story, like it didn't go down like that. Like they went to like this giant school, there's an academy with a bunch of students, and Carlos was just one of many students. So what's the truth? So
when Maeda arrives he begins to teach in the Brazilian Amazon in 1916. We know from a newspaper article, but by the way, this whole jiu-jitsu research was made possible because the Brazilian National Library in 2012 digitized all their files. So now we can learn. But prior to that, it was all oral tradition. So whatever they said, whatever anyone said was gospel truth because no one there to question it. But now we have the newspaper articles. And a few things we learned from searching through those newspaper articles. One is that Carlos's name does not come up at all. Once in 1921, he has a match against Donato Pires dos Reis, which is going to be later on a partner of Carlos and an important figure in this history. But he doesn't come up a whole bunch. The names that we're hearing all the time are Dr. Mateus Pereira, Valdemar Lopes, Rafael Gomes, Jacinto Ferro, and Guilherme de la Roque. These 5 names are coming up all the time, especially Jacinto Ferro.
And is this in pro wrestling or Vale Tudo?
This is jiu-jitsu. This is in relation to Maeda. Maeda was there. It's a fact. He had a school. That's a fact. These were his main students. In fact, he promoted them very, very likely to black belt. We can't know for sure if it's black belt because of the language that the journalist uses when he wrote the article, but very likely to black belt. He promoted these 5 men. And Jacinto Ferro was the guy he left in charge to teach classes because he was more of an ambassador for Japanese immigration. Remember, Japanese are immigrating in great numbers to the Brazilian Amazon, cheap land. The Japanese saw it as a foothold in the Americas. We're talking about the 19-teens here, 1920s. Japan had big aspirations across the Pacific. It wasn't what it is today. It was a different time. It's an empire.
Yeah. And the guy real quick, the guy that we're talking about right now, that taught Carlos Gracie, Maeda, he He's got a movie coming out just on him. He was traveling all over the world, fighting people all over the world, right? He was like a famous.
This was normal. Eddie, the way we travel for me and you travel for seminar, these guys were traveling to fight in the 1910s and 20s and 30s. Like the fight world was very much alive during those days. Maeda was one. Now, the reason we know of Maeda is because of Carlos Gracie. Now, the relationship between Maeda, people don't want to hear this. I've gotten a lot of trouble for saying this, but Eddie, when I say that there's no evidence Carlos ever met Maeda or trained with Maeda, it's not exaggeration. Like there really isn't. Like you can spend your afternoon or your week or a year in the Brazilian National Library looking for a connection, and you cannot find it. What we do find is that Jacinto Ferro was left teaching classes, and that every single piece of evidence we have points to Jacinto Ferro being Carlos's teacher. Now, this doesn't change Carlos's role in the development of BJJ. Carlos is the beginning of the story, not Maeda, not Jacinto. But there's been a lot of clout placed on Maeda because he's Japanese, and because, what I call the martial art lore, like it's basically the Karate Kid story. I tell you a story of a Japanese master teaching a Westerner, and you recognize that story immediately. It's very believable. But that we can't go by lore in Hollywood films. We need to know what the actual facts are. What are the facts of the matter? And the facts are that the evidence we have points to Jacinto Ferro being Carlos's teacher. This is not an attack on Carlos. It does not diminish his role, but he had a Brazilian teacher. Who cares? It doesn't change his role. But his teacher was a Brazilian. Now, he got erased because he was not famous. So imagine you're a white belt at your gym, or maybe a white belt at your gym is teaching, is learning from one of your brown belts. So the brown belt is the guy that teaches a class every day. You're an absent owner. You show up twice a year to say hello for a belt test maybe. And when someone asks this white belt, who's your teacher? Instead of saying your brown belt, he says, Eddie Bravo's my teacher.
Yeah,
that's basically what Carlos did. That happens a lot. That's what Carlos did. So I don't condemn him. I'm not putting like, he was a liar. He could have given Jacinto more credit. I think that would have been the right thing to do. But at the same time, he was a Brazilian trying to compete with the Japanese in São Paulo, the hub of Japanese immigration. Like, who the hell are you? You're a guy from the Amazon. You you're an expert at judo / jiu-jitsu. Who are you? And he's, I'm a student of Maeda. Oh, okay. Maeda, we know. Maeda is known. Right, so he had credibility. He borrowed that. He wasn't the only person to do that. Many people in Brazil claimed to be Maeda's students because Maeda was famous. They gave them automatic credibility. Now, how much training he did under them is a big question mark, if any, because we don't have any evidence. There's nothing. It's all speculation. But the important piece of the story is not that. That's the part that everyone gets focused on because Maeda's on every wall. Even though, if Maeda's on every wall, why isn't Jacinto Ferro on every wall? He's closer to Carlos by proximity. He's more important than Maeda. By proximity to Carlos, because Carlos is the beginning of the story. Carlos Gracie takes over Donato Pires dos Reis gym in 1931, December 12th, 1931. There's no 1925 Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy. That's just false. It's not an attack, but that 1925 date is factually speaking incorrect. Helio Gracie, according to himself, had never heard of Jiu-Jitsu prior to 1929, 1930. He had never heard of Jiu-Jitsu. So it was not something they were practicing amongst themselves, unless they were hiding it from Helio. But Carlos takes over Donato's academy in 1931. And in 1935, there's a very interesting event. Helio is going to battle Yasuichi Ono. He battles Ono twice in 35 and 36. And they can't agree on the rules. That's what's interesting. They can't agree on the rules. The Ono brothers wanted judo rules, right? Basically international judo rules. The Gracie brothers wanted a different rule set. They don't agree. They don't want long sleeves. They want short sleeves. They don't want points. They want longer matches. They argue. Finally, the Gracies have their way, and Helio does fight Ono twice to a draw, even though Ono threw him 32 times the first time, 27 takedowns the second time. But they fight him. They fight each other to a draw. Now, why is this important? Because when you no longer agree on the rule set, Eddie, are you really doing the same thing? So I placed a point of partition between judo and what we now call Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's the first evolutionary marker. It's not the ground fighting system we have today. This is crystal clear by the own rule sets that the Gracies used throughout the 50s and 60s. They did not have a ground orientation. They gave 1 point for takedown, 1 point for mount. It was 50-50, which is essentially the pre-war judo model, 50-50. But there's already a disagreement as to what jiu-jitsu was. There's a disagreement as to the interpretation of the art. When these guys began to separate from judo, it's because they don't agree on the rule set. Given enough isolation and time, now what happens if you train in a rule set that awards 20 points for takedowns and 1 point for mount, and I train under a rule set that gives 1 point for takedown and 20 for mount? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Your guys are going to be, your students will be experts at takedowns, and my students will be experts at passing the guard and mounting. Goes without saying. That's essentially what happened. That's the first evolutionary marker. And it has to, and again, this is all emphasized. Not only do they want to intentionally distance themselves from judo, they don't want to be judokas. They don't want to be under the judo hierarchy. They don't want to accept sportive format judo. They wanted something that was closer to the reality of combat, which is one reason they're ambiguous about it, because while they do want to grow, and for growth, you're going to need tournaments. There's no way around that. They still are attached to this vision of jiu-jitsu being something that works in a real fight. So they're ambiguous about these things. So they try to create a rule set that is aimed towards what they interpreted a real fight to be, which was something that ended on the ground and stayed on the ground. Because remember, Vale Tudo, they didn't stop fights. It's very different from the UFC today. Fight would stay there for 25 minutes on the ground. The referee wouldn't stop it. So that's, in a nutshell, that's how BJJ developed. It was a slow process from, old traditional judo, pre-war judo, pre-Olympic judo, into what we now call Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But the lineage descends. Like, there's no question about it. I'll just to clarify, just to give you a little more support to my point here. In 1954, the Gracie Academy had an in-house tournament. The rule set had Ippon, Vazari, and Osaikomi. Now, how are you going to tell me that these guys weren't practicing judo in 1954? They have Ippon, Wazari, and Osaikomi in the rule set. The difference is that Ippon does not end the fight. To your point earlier, your back's on the ground. Fight's not over, bro. Fight ends with a submission. That was already there. So that's already a evidence of them what? They're moving away from judo, but they're doing this very slowly. It's not, there's no rupture. There's no, Maeda taught them old jiu-jitsu. That is nonsense, Eddie. Maeda taught them classical judo. Maeda was not a ground expert. He was not a Kosen judo expert. He was a Kodokan black belt that knew very little ground. The ground orientation is something very, very new post-1975, which is why the book is called 50 Years of Martial Arts. It's the Martial Arts Revolution. This is the 1975 rule set is the rule set that changed everything. What we now call jiu-jitsu or Brazilian jiu-jitsu is a byproduct of the 1975 rule set. What you train, what you teach, what I train, what I teach is traces its lineage straight back to the 1975.
And that was because of Carlson.
Carlson he was not the inventor of the rule set, but he was the guy that nourished that environment. He was the one. So we have a rule set, but a rule set without competition is nothing. A rule set needs competition. Carlson was the guy that insisted on competition being the model. And when I'm talking competition, I'm not just talking tournaments. I'm talking about sparring. Live sparring is not something that was the bread and butter of the original Gracie Academy. Again, we were talking, they did private lessons, self-defense. That's not an evolutionary model. There's no evolution unless there's friction. If you have me teaching you a self-defense private every day, how is the sport going to, how is the art going to evolve? How is it going to evolve? There's no evolution.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to think of a move at home. That's speculation. That's not evolution. Evolution is when you come up with a butterfly guard, I find a way to beat it, and the next day you find a way to beat my pass, and I find a way to beat your defense, and that's how you scale. That's the arms race that yields evolution. That was not a central feature of their practice until the Carlson Gracie 1975 moment. That moment onwards, it's a whole different martial art. There's just no way around it, Eddie. There's no way around it.
You saw that. You saw the evidence of that when, because I want to get into the whole rivalry between Luta Libre and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Ivan Gomez, George Gracie, and why they cut him out. But in 1975, that makes sense. They start a format, a BJJ format that we still use that as a base. And then when that big event, and I know you know what I'm talking about, the big Luta Libre versus Jiu-Jitsu event that happened like 91, where it was Murilo Bustamante, Walid Ismail. And then was it Amari Batet or who was the third guy?
Fabio Gurgel.
Fabio Gurgel, Muro Bustamante, and all Carlson Gracie guys. And they had it was like
Fabio was from Cavalcanti, Jacare. But he would train with Carlson. But the other two.
But it was jiu-jitsu versus luta libre, right?
Yes.
And the jiu-jitsu, there was 3 matches, and the jiu-jitsu guys dominated. They beat them all. And do you think because of that 1975, the origin of that format, you think that had a lot to do with it? Because clearly they were better on the ground than the luta libre guys. They were clearly better.
And not only that, and I hope I don't sound like I'm trying to sell my book here, but I don't bring it out again. But that's what I talk about in this book. What gave BJJ the edge over judokas, wrestlers on the ground, I'm not talking takedowns, I'm talking ground grappling. Okay? What gave BJJ the edge was the 1975 rule set. We have a testimony here in the book of a catch wrestler who Eric Paulson, actually, who trained with the Machado brothers in the early to mid 90s. I can't remember the date. And the interviewer is asking him, like, what's the difference? It's like, oh, their positioning. Their positioning was better. That's what he's saying. Well, why positioning? Because the 1975 rule set emphasizes what, Eddie? Passing the guard, hold position, mounting, taking the back. What other grappling art in the world emphasizes back takes like BJJ? Now, I'm not saying BJJ invented back takes, but which art emphasizes in the rule set back takes with 4 points like BJJ does?
That's like first and goal. You know, I compare professional football to jiu-jitsu because it's so similar. You know, when you're an open guard, you're on your own 20. When you pass the half guard, you're midfield. You pass the guard to side control, you're on the 20-yard line. Now you mount, you're in the red zone. You take the back, it's first and goal. You know, and if you're on your back, you want to get the ball back by sweeping. Now you got the ball if you swept. Or you could do a pick six. You could get an arm bar off your back or a triangle off your back. That's like an interception touchdown, aka pick six. So it's very, very similar. Like you're marching down the field, trying to get to scoring position, trying to get inside the 10-yard line, which is the back or the mount. So
and you just described what I call the progression paradigm. I use that term in the book. Because what they understood the fight to be, there was a progression in the fight from neutrality, no man's land, which is, there's 2 of them. One of them is standing. The other one is I'm playing guard, you're passing my guard. Okay. And then there's a progression from that towards the submission, which also happens to be the same positions where you can strike from. So these things coincide. Yeah. So not only can I submit you from mount, I can also punch and elbow you. Right. So this progression is what gave BJJ the edge over other grappling arts. This is why you see Hickson triangle those wrestlers in those Gold Gracie and action tapes. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, he triangled the wrestler." Yeah, he triangled the white belt. That's to be expected. Like white belt walks in the gym, and the black belt puts him in the triangle. That's not impressive. He's been doing it. But the rule set is the one that we should be applauding here, not the individual. It's the rule set that made it possible for the individual to put these guys in the triangle, and the top guy has no idea what's happening because it's not in his rule set. So the rule set really is something special. Now, it has flaws. I talk about these in the book. There's some glitches, some contradictions, in my opinion, some things that just don't add up. But in general, it not only survived the test of time, it has also kickstarted BJJ's evolution and moved it further away from judo. Because remember, up to 1967, the rule set was still 1 for 1, 1 point for takedown, 1 point for mount. That says a lot about what their interpretation of what jiu-jitsu was in that age. It was much. Just watch Helio's matches. He's standing up the whole time. He doesn't pull guard. He doesn't go on the ground. He's on his feet the whole time. He was taken down 32 times by Yasuichi Ono, Eddie.
How is that?
If you're taken down,
isn't that 32-0?
And they had no. The 1935 match, they had no points, but he got taken because Helio insisted on no points.
Okay.
But if you get taken down 32 times, what are you trying to do in a match? You're trying to stand up. There's no explanation.
Yeah.
If you wanted to be on the ground, you get taken down once and stay on the ground.
Yeah.
If you get taken down 32 times, what are you doing the whole time?
Getting up.
You're standing up. You're on your feet. How else would you get taken down 32 times? Yeah. So these guys were traditional judokas. That's what they don't want to hear, but they were. And it's not an attack, Eddie. We come from judo. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
The gi we use, the gi we wear, that is a judo gi. Okay. Our ranking system is barred. There's nothing wrong. It's not an insult to Brazilians. Brazilians added the most beautiful thing this art has, to me, was the surf culture of Copacabana, and they brought that onto the mats with them. And I think that is the richest thing that Brazil has to offer, is those relaxed manners, the fun time, the bros, let's say after practice. That's one reason why I love jiu-jitsu. It's not the only reason.
Yeah.
But it would not be fair to say that's that's Japanese, that the Brazilians added nothing to the art. But it would be equally unfair to say that we do not trace our genealogy straight back to the Kodokan.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Now let's get into George Gracie, the Gracie that got erased from the narrative.
So George is, I think he's the middle one. It goes Carlos, Osvaldo, George. I can't remember the order now, but he was the original, because Carlos was not the fighter. Carlos was the manager / coach. Like, he fought once, Manuel Rufino dos Santos. That's a famous story. He didn't win. He was, so he was making his brother George the star of the family, right? He was like managing his brother's career. George was a free spirit. George was not someone to take orders, follow diets. He's like, yeah, I'm your younger brother, but you're not going to tell me what to do. So imagine you have a sibling who's like a bit of a rebel, doesn't want to listen to his older brother. Basically, a pretty normal thing, in my books. But what's interesting about George is that, first of all, the first Vale-Tudo match in modern history was George Gracie versus Chico Soledade in 1933, exactly 60 years before the first UFC. George Gracie is a bit of a nomad also. He doesn't sit still. He's the first champion of the family. He has a fallout with his brothers, but he doesn't sit still. He's in Rio, and then he's in the north of Brazil. He has a lineage there. He has a lineage still in the north of Brazil. Ivan Gomes, Euclides Pereira comes from that lineage. They don't come from Helio and Carlos. He comes from the George Gracie lineage. Oh. There are lineages in São Paulo. They go straight back to George Gracie. My first instructor is one of them. You go straight back to George Gracie. So George Gracie was very important in the development of BJJ in Brazil. Now, there's a lot of questions that people ask me all the time. Is there any lineage in Brazil that is non-Gracie? Not that I'm aware of. Every lineage in Brazil is Gracie when it comes to jiu-jitsu. There's no question about it. But not all of them are Carlos and Helio. George was also very important. Granted, I think that overall Helio and Carlos were more important and had trained more students. Their lineages are much bigger. George had his place too. But he was not a businessman. He was at odds with his siblings. He was a bit of a free spirit. He was, from all accounts, he was the kind of guy that would sit at the bar with you to drink a beer and laugh and have a good time. And he had a child here or there. His son actually wrote me a while ago. He's a lawyer. He's not in jiu-jitsu. He's a Gracie, but he's not in jiu-jitsu. His son actually wrote me, thanking me the other day for, helping revive the memory of his father. But he's not in jiu-jitsu at all. So, George was closer to a normal guy. What is so unusual about Carlos and Helio is that they really stuck to their vision of creating a legacy for themselves and having 30 children, 20 of them males, that would push forward that vision. It's very unique. George was not that kind of guy. He was more like me and you, or someone else. He's just having maybe 1 or 2 kids, maybe 3, and not really thinking what their name was going to be, 30 years down the road. Because I do believe Carlos was thinking that way. It's one reason why he had so many children. He's thinking long term. He's thinking dynasty, and I have mixed feelings about that. I was like, man, that's a lot of kids just so you can, so they can carry on your name. But to each their own. It did work out in our favor. I'm here because of that. I'm certainly not an ingrate. I appreciate what has been done. And then Ray Richard, to your question, George.
Why do you think they don't mention George Gracie? I heard that it was because he was doing pro wrestling and he was doing fixed fights, and that kind of pissed Carlos and Helio off, and they kind of just cut him.
Yeah, well, look, first off, everyone did fixed fights in those days. It was the norm. We frown on that now, but that's how you made money. If people don't understand grappling today after the UFC, imagine in the 1940s and 50s. It was normal. These fake fights were normal. So but that is one reason. George went the other way. He was very much immersed in the catch wrestling world. He was more of today we would probably describe him closer to a catch wrestler than a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. But George was very, very free-spirited, and he would not take orders. He didn't want to obey his brothers. Like, he didn't want to follow Carlos's orders, and the family came to see him as a rebel. I've interviewed 4 members of the Gracie family, and they all refer to him as a rebel. Oh, what about George? Oh, he was a rebel. That's what they say. He's a rebel. So he kind of got pushed aside because he didn't want to, follow the diet. He had a difficult relationship with his brothers, especially Carlos. But that's the reason why. It's not because he doesn't have, it's nothing to do with merit. If merit were the fundamental factor here, there's no question people would be like, everyone would know who George Gracie is. But, marketing is the strongest force in history. We know that. Like this, that's the one thing I've learned, Eddie. Marketing is the key. It's not merit. Like if it were merit, no one would know who Bruce Lee is. Everyone would know who Euclid Spirit and Ivan Gomez are, or were. They don't. It's only in a world where Hollywood movies and comic books and lore and marketing have dictated what is up and down in martial arts world that we don't know who Euclid Pereira is. It's because when you really think about it, it's absurd. You can't even put him in the same sentence with most fighters today. Now, if you were to be fair,
you say Euclides Pereira. That's not Euclides Hayden, is it? Different guy.
No. That's the Luta Livre guy.
Okay.
Different Euclid.
Okay. So now
Euclid Pereira.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, Euclid Pereira is still alive, by the way.
I see him right there. I saw him.
Okay, you see the old guy sit on the chair? You see it?
Yeah. Damn.
He's got alive, man. Still. And this guy, the retired undefeated. This guy had over 100 fights, Vale Tudo fights, never lost. He's the only guy to defeat Carlson Gracie.
And another guy, I just saw a video on a guy no one knows about. His name is Ivan Gomez, and he came through George Gracie, and he's undefeated. He was like, he fought in the one thing we don't realize is that, like, there's a shit ton of fights that we know nothing about that the Gracies weren't involved in. There's all these champions out there, and we know nothing. There's no records of them. But when I watched a little documentary on Ivan Gomez, I'm like, he fought Carlson Gracie. It was to a draw, and then he wanted a rematch, but then he ended up joining forces with Carlson Gracie and, vowed to never fight a Gracie again, but he kept fighting. And then Inoki, that huge pro wrestling star in Japan, he came to Brazil, and Ivan Gomez was calling him out, and he was saying, come on, let's see who you think you're the best. Come on, so he was calling him out like Clubber Lang in Rocky III. And then Inoki, or that's his name, right? He ended up saying, hey, why don't you, instead of fighting each other, why don't you join forces with me, and we'll make a shit ton of money doing pro wrestling in Japan. And then he went to Japan. Yeah. He's like this pro wrestling god in Japan. And like, tell me about what you know about Ivan Gomez.
I just, before I go there, I just want to correct myself. When I say that Euclid Pereira had over 100 Vale Tudo fights, I've never verified that, but that's been claimed so many times. Sometimes you end up believing something that keeps being claimed all the time, but I've never fact-checked that claim. But he did retire undefeated. Okay. But Ivan Gomez was, him and Euclid Pereira and Carlson were probably the best Vale Tudo fighters in the pre-Royce Gracie era in Brazil. So prior to Royce Gracie, who were the best guys? If you had to name top three, best fight, Euclid Pereira, Ivan Gomez, and Carlson Gracie. I think this is very, very fair statement. And they fought each other. I said they were from the same era. The level was very high, Eddie. What we think of, like, it was very prehistoric fight. There's a fight between Carlson Gracie and Valdemar Santana that I would argue was more sophisticated in 1956 than those first UFCs were. It was closer to the UFC today, 1956, than the UFCs were in 93. Because in some ways, Vale Tudo went backwards because it was practically banned in Brazil. So if you stop with competition, what happens to the art? It goes down. It doesn't go up. Because the competition is what pushes, it's what raises the bar, right?
Yeah, the overall level of ground fighting in the first 10 UFCs is atrocious. It's embarrassing overall.
No. But if you watch Carlson fight Valdemar Santana, I had a friend of mine who was a judoka bring this to my attention. I completely missed it when I saw it. Carlson is hitting Uchimatas right and left. It's like, Robert, you know how hard that is? How few judokas can hit an Uchimata right and left. He hits right and left. That's a very unique, not everyone has it. It's a very high level, distancing, leg kicks, clinching, getting back up on the ropes. It's very similar to a UFC fight today. But those guys were part of that world. They fought regularly. Most of these fights are not registered, which is why we don't really know how many times they fought, because there was no commission to keep track. There's no SureDog.com. These things didn't exist, but they were fighting. It was common to fight like every month, sometimes every weekend. And these guys were very skilled, man. Considering the level, I'm considering how the means to develop. Like if there are matches of Ivan Gomez online, you can watch them. These guys retired undefeated. Ivan fought Euclides, I think 5 or 6 times. I can't remember now. Always to a draw. Draws were very common then. They didn't have decision, but it was always a close fight. Euclides actually went on to beat Carlson. It was a controversial fight, but he's the only guy to defeat Carlson in a fight. So these guys were very skilled, man. And he's like, oh, but they weren't important in the development of jiu-jitsu in Brazil. Like, that's not exactly true. They do have their lineages in Brazil. Like I showed you the picture, Euclides is still teaching, still on the map on his gi. He's 90-something years old. And, I think it's questionable also to say that someone's role as a fighter is only to leave a lineage and a legacy. Like, no, man, your role as a fighter is to throw yourself in the fire. You fight, and that's what you do, man. It's not everything is about legacy, man. It's not everything is about, having your name. What do fighters do, Eddie? We fight. That's what we do. You fight. That's what you're supposed to do, man. Like, what the guys did it. Like the guy had possibly over 100 victories.
Yeah.
But he's not remembered because there's no marketing behind it. And it died with his era. And there was no one there to remember him, and his children weren't there to do that. And I think it's a shame because, I always get in trouble for saying this, so I just stopped caring. But like, if we're gonna put Bruce Lee as this great martial artist, where do I put Ivan Gomez? You tell me.
Yeah.
Like, if Bruce Lee is a great martial artist, where he had one amateur boxing match as a teenager. Bruce Lee had one amateur boxing match as a teenager, never fought again. That was it. That's the extent of his experience. One match boxing as a teenager. Ivan Gomez and Euclides Pereira, 100 of Vale Tudo matches in Brazil. So if I'm going to put Bruce Lee at a pedestal, where do I put Ivan Gomez and Euclides Pereira? You tell me. It's all wrong, man. It's all wrong. We got this thing. The world is upside down. Eddie, we got everything backwards. That's the problem. There's no meritocracy, man. It's all about who you know and who you're friends with and politics and promoting. And jiu-jitsu to me is not about that.
Yeah.
That's how I've always looked at jiu-jitsu, man. It's like when I see Buchecha, I'm always happy. I'm never jealous. Like, that's the fucking man right there. Because he won 13 world titles, Eddie. 13 black belt world titles. I have one, and I'm very proud of it. This guy has 13. You know what I'm talking about? Like, so, like, it's a weird world we live in. It's a very strange world. And I think that BJJ community in general should do more to honor the people that created the world we live in today. Like the people that actually built the road.
One of the great things that Carlson Gracie did after his fighting career in regards to building a team is, like, we talked about that Gracie versus Luta Livre event in 88, 89 we were talking about. The level of, like, Bustamante and Fabio Gurgel, like, man, if you put them in the early UFCs, like the first 6 UFCs, like, Bustamante would have crushed everybody. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I agree.
What he had, what Bustamante had, that and what the Carlson Gracie guys had, that, like, Hoist didn't have and Hickson didn't have, and Hoyler and Henzo did have striking, but Hoyler, Hickson, and Hoist did not really have striking. They would come out, they would come out like this. They would, they would have their hands out and everybody like this, and they would have that front push kick and go directly for the takedown. And there's something to be said about that style too. That's just fuck with the striking. Let's just get in there and clinch. But in today's, that'll never work in today's UFC. You have to have legit boxing and Thai boxing and wrestling. And Carlson Gracie was all over that. This was way before the UFC. He was already he was kind of doing a Luta Livre, but with more jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Because Luta Livre was, the idea was great. Luta Livre was great. Wasn't it, you know, it's basically you got to get good at the three phases, the striking, the wrestling, and the jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah, well, this idea we have of like, oh, jiu-jitsu is on the ground and it has no striking. Like that's a new idea, Eddie. Like when you probably, I don't know if you ever trained this way, but you probably remember what I'm talking about. In the 90s, when I was a white belt, there's one day the coach just said, all right, everyone take their gi jackets off and we're going to train with strikes, with open palms.
That's combat jiu-jitsu.
Basically, right? And then that's how we would practice.
Yeah.
Taparia, exactly. So these things were part of jiu-jitsu. Once a week, they trained with slaps. This was to keep jiu-jitsu grounded in the reality of combat. They had that concern. So this idea of jiu-jitsu with no punches and no kicks, that's something that we do. Those guys had absorbed kicks from capoeira, punches from boxing, clinching from wrestling. Like they were absorbing from other martial arts because jiu-jitsu to them was something that was supposed to work in a real fight, not a tournament. Obviously, you know, things have changed. Competition has had that side effect of changing all that. But Carlson was a guy who grew up here. Again, his experience did not take place in jiu-jitsu competition. It took place in Vale Tudo. So his experience is a Vale Tudo experience. So naturally, when there's the Vale Tudo challenge between jiu-jitsu and luta livre in 1991, well, they go to Carlson. Like, Carlson, how do we win? So because Carlson was the most experienced guy. So he's like, I'll come over here. I'll help you guys. Fabio Gurgel was from a different team, but he came over to train with Carlson. It's like, I'm going to get you guys ready. Because he had that experience in the 1950s and 60s. Vale Tudo takes a dive in the 70s and 80s. It's practically extinct in Brazil. So the level went
politically,
down.
it got banned. It got canceled, right?
Well, so there's two things. One, Brazil is a military dictatorship from 1964 to 1985. The Brazilian middle class has never liked Vale Tudo. So the government wasn't keen on Vale Tudo matches. It was difficult to get a license to do an event like that. And the other reason I heard this from some of the old timers is like there was no interest. We just weren't interested in fighting. We have jiu-jitsu competitions. And I thought that was strange. It was like, that's a very strange thing to say because clearly they're fighting on the streets all the time. So it's like they didn't lose the interest in fighting. I think it was more likely to be a government issue. I never researched this in depth, so I can't say for certain. But my guess would be that they had a hard time getting approval by city or the state or whatever, because it was something that society frowned. It was a bloody business, you know, so it was frowned upon.
Now, Euclides Haydem, he's the founder of Luta Livre. Can you give me an overview on how the rivalry between Luta Livre and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu started?
The history of Luta Livre is very convoluted, Eddie. I've asked Roberto Leitão in person this. I've asked him over emails. It's not clear. There's no such thing as, like, for example, we can trace BJJ's lineage straight back to the Kodokan. It goes Maeda, it goes Jacinto Ferro, Carlos Gracie, Helio Gracie, Carlson Gracie. Easy, no problem. But when it comes to Luta Livre, it's not so simple. So Euclides Haydem, he was a Luta Livre practitioner, but we don't know who he learned it from, if it came from the United States. My guess is that it came from the United States, because till this day, Brazilians call the arm bar army locky. They call the knee bar leggy locky. So these are terms that they're borrowing from the Americana, right? They call it Americana. These are terms that they're borrowing from. My guess, Americana did not come from Bob Anderson, by the way. It was already known as Americana in Brazil in 1951. So it's most likely they're borrowing from catch wrestlers. So what kind of relationship he had with American catch wrestlers, if any, we don't know. It's a bit of a question mark. But Roberto Leitão was probably the most influential figure in the history of Luta Livre in Brazil. He did say this. He was a student of Takeo Yano. Takeo Yano was a Japanese immigrant. He's a Kodokan black belt. He migrated to Brazil in 1935. He's very influential. He was a rival of the Gracie family, a partner of George Gracie, and he was a coach to Roberto Leitão, the father of Brazilian Luta Livre. So I asked him, so you train with, because I didn't know this. Oh, you train with Takeo Yano? Yes, I was training under him. And we would train in judo. And I thought, you were training judo? Yes, I was training judo. And then one day it got really hot in Rio de Janeiro. They didn't have AC in those days. So it got really, really hot. So we asked, is it okay if we take our gi jackets off? And then Takeo Yano said, sure. So they took their gi jackets off and kept training in their gi pants. And they were just doing takedowns. It was a judo class with no jacket. And then when he said that, I was like, hold up here, man. So you're not a student of Euclid's Hatum, and we don't know who Hatum was a student of anyway. You're telling me you were a student of Takeo Yano, who was a judoka. Like, the evidence doesn't point towards catch wrestling. It points towards judo. Because we don't have a connection with catch wrestling. It's all speculation. The connection we have was that Roberto Leitão was a student of Takeo Yano. Now, is there someone else that brought catch wrestling to Brazil and taught it to Brazilians? We don't know. My guess is that the influence of judo was greater than catch wrestling in luta libre because of Roberto Leitão's testimony. I did not know he was a Takeo Yano student, but he actually comes from judo.
Now, I'm gonna let you go soon, but I want to end with the origins and the inventors of the heel hook. Heel hooks are, all the rage, over the last 10 years. But the one thing that I found out, I thought heel hooks came from Sambo. And then 10 years ago or less, I learned that there is no heel hooks in Sambo. They only do ankle locks and knee bars and calf slicers. I go, wait a minute. There's no heel hooks in Sambo this whole fucking time. I thought heel hooks came from Sambo. Where is there evidence that the Japanese made it up? For sure, it didn't come from China, right, or India, right? Heel hooks in India.
No. This whole India talk is nonsense. India, China. It's so the evidence we have. I want to show you something here.
Where did heel hooks come from?
I'm going to show you in a second, but before I'm going to show you something really quick here. The evidence we have points to Holland, believe it or not heel hooks, but much of what we refer to as judo. These are judo throws. This is a book from 1674, and it's a book of a Dutch traveler, a Dutch grappler called Nicholas Peters from 1674, and it was in Japan. So basically, the Kodokan curriculum is on there. So the point is, the Japanese might have gotten their moves from catch wrestlers, because catch wrestling is much older, right? It's much older than judo. But the heel hook. Okay, my look, Eddie, no one knows. We do know that the Greeks knew the heel hook, so it goes far back. My take on these things is we like to think that we, as humans, we are really smart and we invent things. But my experience in jiu-jitsu, and my guess is you will agree with me as a practitioner and as a coach, normally when we discover something, it's by accident. Like you're trying to do something and it doesn't work, and you end up doing something else. Yeah. I've come up with many moves, like, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but that Mikey lock that everyone, I was doing that 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like the Dagestani handcuff, done it for 15 years. The Darce, no one ever taught me the Darce. I know I wasn't the first, but my point is we're all coming up with moves all the time. Even if we don't realize it, we're all doing new things. And these things are a process of what? A friction, a selection. And if the end goal is a submission, there's only so many ways I can submit you. It's a matter of time before I figure out a heel hook. So the heel hook was probably invented anywhere where grappling aimed at a submission, not a takedown. Anywhere where the rules allow and the purpose is submission, it's a matter of time before they invent the heel hook. So we know that Euclides Pereira knew the heel hook, and he learned it from his coach, who learned it from his coach. So this is like one of those questions, like asking, where did the trees come from?
Yeah.
They've always been there, man. Like this idea that, we're really smart. Those guys before were really dumb. Do you really think that we were smarter than them? Because we have YouTube, we have more information than them. But human anatomy, human intelligence has not significantly changed in the last 100 years. Actually, IQ points are dropping. I don't know if you saw that. Like, we're the first generation where the children are less intelligent than the parents in many, many years. But I don't think that these guys were incapable of discovering a heel hook. I think if they have the environment to allow the heel hook to be discovered, a competitive environment, whether it's a gym or a tournament, it's just a matter of time before they reach that conclusion. So my guess is that that conclusion was reached in many places over the world. It's just that there was a surge in the last 15, 20 years in the U.S. and in the BJJ world because the heel hook was legalized. That's what a lot of the young crowd doesn't understand. Those guys in Brazil are really dumb. I'm really smart. That's why I can do leg locks and you can't. It's like, no, because first of all, if you did a shin-to-shin guard in the 80s in Brazil, you get slapped in the ear, taparia. So that would nullify leg attacks right there. You add strikes, and all of a sudden, attacking legs is terrifying. Okay? The other reason,
not all of them. We learn
Not all.
some leg locks will save you from getting your ass beat. If you reaping saves you from getting your ass beat. So some leg locks are dangerous.
When strikes are involved, Eddie, it's more difficult to reach evolution. When you remove the strikes, you get free open terrain. It's a free arena, open arena for experimentation, so you can try new things. But that's one reason. Like, you have these guys, and they're doing everything with strikes. And the other thing is technology, Eddie. Remember, if you blew your knee in the 1960s, 70s, you'd be walking with a cane for the rest of your life. Today, you can reconstruct the knee from completely, and you get a brand new knee if you want, a mechanical one. And in 6 months, you're back on the mats like nothing happened. Okay, so the cost of a heel hook injury in the 1960s, 70s was much, much higher then than it is now. Yeah. So it was the legalization of heel hooks in the last 15, 20 years, coupled with the professionalization of no-gi, which allows heel hooks, that led to the revolution, coupled with YouTube and BJJ Fanatics and all these schools and all these competitions. That's what led to the evolution of heel hooks. It's not that the guys back then didn't know them, but there's no... Well, look, give another example. Why aren't you good at eye gouging? I'm guessing you've never trained it, but are you good at eye gouging?
I've never tried it.
Me neither. It's illegal in jiu-jitsu, isn't it? That's why we're not good at it. So if something is illegal, how are you going to be good at it?
Exactly.
It's when you legalize something that people specialize. It's like, why would you specialize on something that's illegal in competition? Which is why I admire guys like, I have great admiration for guys like Dean Lister, for example, because he's pressing that button, leg locks, for a time where it was barely legal. You could do it at ADCC, and that was it. And the occasional professional event that you had in the early 2000s, but he stuck to his guns.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, he was on the right track. He was on to discovering things, but Dean Lister's one guy. If you had 100 Dean Listers, 200 Dean Listers, 500 Dean Listers, and they're doing leg locks all the time, guess what happens? You get the same transitions we have now. It could have happened in the early 2000s. It just didn't happen because there's no competition that allowed them.
Yeah. Yep. Robert, you're a bad motherfucker, man. Keep up the work. And if just remember this, anytime you're on YouTube and you find a very technical old match with crazy moves, please text me the link. I'm fascinated with the old shit. You know, Mike Tyson was all into old boxing. You know, he was like, he's a boxing encyclopedia. Like, I feel like I wanna get into the true history of the evolution of Vale Tudo and actually watch the fights. But I don't want to watch any fake fights. I don't want to. I'm not like pro. I'm not into pro wrestling.
I'll send you. I got some stuff in mind. I'll definitely send you something. You should receive a copy of the book within the next couple of days.
Hell yeah! How can my audience reach you?
Fuck, man. The only social media I'm sort of present in is Instagram. I suck at social media, but I do respond. If you write me, you will get a response. Even the people that talk shit get a response, Eddie. So I'm kind enough to even my haters get a response. But I feel it's rude not to. Like, Rob, why are you responding? He's talking shit. Like, I feel compelled.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in Vegas, if everyone's ever Vegas, stop by. I'm not political when it comes to jiu-jitsu. Everyone's welcome.
And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking care of Don Lobo. That's my boy. Thank you. He says nothing but great things about you. But thank you for that, man. He loves you.
No, he's a sweetheart. His family, they're great. They always bring me food. His mom always brings me dulce de leche. I'm like, thank you.
Hell yeah. I love it.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. Listen, and if you're ever in Vegas, I'm sure you're there all the time. Stop by the gym, say hello. I'd love to have you.
I will, man. Thank you, dude. And let's do part 2 sometime soon.
Anytime.
All right, man. Thank you, dude. Have a good night.
The Jiu-Jitsu Dojo is the ultimate training ground for life. Jiu-Jitsu will accelerate the evolution of your being, your consciousness, your soul. Through this amazing art, you will prove to yourself that you can master anything you set your mind to.
Happy birthday, Eddie Bravo.
I leave for Brazil tomorrow. Are you the Fear Factor guy? I'm like 6 pounds over. Time to sweat it out. Just imagine someone that has no idea how different your game is. I'll tell you what this weekend was, man. It was a culmination point where all your hard work comes to like one great moment in time. You showed that you're a fucking champion. Guy who goes against convention. You created your own shit and figured interesting ways to get around problems in jiu-jitsu. And shows you that great things are possible if you work hard, if you dedicate yourself, and you use your creativity, and you push through. Your own human potential just goes up.
My 10th Planet Association has grown rapidly to over 70 academies worldwide, and their curriculums are all synced to 10th Planet headquarters located in downtown Los Angeles. I'm Eddie Bravo. I hope to see you on the mats.